Well, hot damn! Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And BlueDragonFive.
And welcome to the 13 Reasons Why Spoi13rCast. Alright. Spoilers. Who killed Bryce Walker? Who killed Bryce? Should we tell him, Dragon? Should we tell him?
Well, it's not exactly a
Should we
clear
just
cut.
go right into it? Should we just, name the name right now, right off the top?
But maybe not.
All right. It was Marcus Cole.
Yes! I'm sorry, folks. We couldn't
Steve.
fight it back any longer. It was that little weasel-faced Marcus.
Really mean Steve, everyone. Dragon, please. I feel like this is a telephone gag at this point, but would you like to explain really mean Steve?
For anyone who's seen the film Chronicle, there is the wonderful actor Michael B. Jordan plays a character named Steve. Am I correct?
Yes.
And
Steve Montgomery.
The idea is he was a class president. He was an example of a nice, popular guy. and we have the Marcus Cole, right?
Yes, Marcus Cole.
We have the Marcus Cole character in 13 Reasons for the first two seasons. Big in the first season, in which that guy was also, I believe, he was student president as well. Correct? Or is he what was he?
I believe they were both student body presidents.
Point being, he had a lot of clout and very student president. If he wasn't the student body president, he was in the upper echelon of that or something.
Uh-huh.
And the point being, he was like, what if you took Steve and you took him to a really dark place? You took this Weasley guy and you're like, oh my god, it's yet another president character in a high school setting. He's just really mean though. So what if he's really mean Steve?
Well, I believe you're missing the key component here, Dragon, is the idea is that really mean Steve is like the big bad Harv alter ego to the Harvey Dent of Steve Montgomery.
Ah, yes, I am missing. It's been a while. Remember, he's not even in this season, so yeah.
Yeah, I know, he's not. That's why I wanted to address it up front. Also, I want to address Pink Pearl Apple on a more serious note. Pink Pearl Disney Wishes says, or hold on, let me get the right one up. Pray for Amazonia. Yes, Pink Pearl, definitely. You're in my thoughts for sure during that whole situation. Terrible. I'm sorry. Natural disaster going on.
This is the rainforest thing, right?
Yeah, the Amazonian rainforest.
Yeah, that's a shame. I didn't know they had like a
really bad times there. So definitely you're in my thoughts, Pink Pearl, in that whole situation. I hope you and your family are safe.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So.
Well, if we're going to be mindful of issues, this is the podcast to do it. So.
It is. Oh. Pink Pearl says she does have family in the area who are affected by the smoke. So I'm really sorry to hear that, Pink Pearl. You guys are definitely in my thoughts and prayers.
All Likewise, right. I wish we had a kind of a non-cliche thing to say, but seriously, man, we sympathize.
Well, I mean, like I said, this is kind of like the this is the place to talk about serious issues for sure. So
absolutely, it's no laughing matter what's going on there. It's a shame. Really.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
All right.
Being back on topic.
Yeah, so Dragon, let's deliver our thesis statements for the season. Dragon, my thesis statement is going to be very short and very sweet, all right? Are you ready? I think you're going to like this.
Okay, fire away.
Okay, 13 Reasons Why, in general, is a show that I consider to be a candy bar for the brain.
Really?
Yes, because it's basically just like a whole bunch of teen angst and drama, it's like teen soap opera of the series, right? It's almost like a movie of like just ridiculous teen issues, except it's played straight. And Dragon Season 3 is if that candy bar for the brain was left out in the sidewalk for a week and then ran over by Clay Jensen's bike and then ran over by Tony's El Camino. I mean, it's still a candy bar for the brain, Dragon, but there's a lot of mushiness. There's a lot of broken parts. I mean, this season's wonky, man. This is a weird season of television. It really is, man.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think when you say El Camino, you're thinking of something else on Netflix that's really awesome.
Yes, I am. Tony drives a Mustang,
I
right?
believe so. I believe it's a certain style of Mustang. I could be wrong.
All right, I'm sorry, but I'm just thinking of like classic 13 Reasons Why vehicles to run over this proverbial metaphorical candy bar. Dragon, suffice to say, I wasn't a fan of this season. There were good things about it. I thought that the Ani character was interesting. I thought she was in like a solid concept. I'm not sure if the execution on her was done phenomenally well, but the idea of her as a narrative device definitely changed things up. Dylan Monet, damn it, Dragon. I meant to go Minette. All right, Dylan Minette. He continues to be the reason to watch this show. He's absolutely fantastic. I think this is probably his best season yet in terms of acting. Like, he is too good for this show, in all honesty, at this point. But yeah, Dragon, in terms of just like, I think season 2 had its issues, but I think season 2 is probably my favorite season out of the three of them, just because it didn't feel as exploitative as season 1 did. But by the same token, it also had moments that really hit hard. And it did kind of have like a building sense of dread and tension with the whole school shooter angle that kind of like loomed throughout the season. And Dragon, the only dread and tension that I felt throughout this thing was just like, oh my God, how are they going to mess it up this time? I mean, Dragon, I really was not feeling it. There's a couple good things here and there. I do have one episode in particular. Shocker, it's the Clay episode that I think is a really damn good episode. But other than that, man, I don't know. I'm still in it for the long haul, man, because I'm definitely gonna be watching season 4 for sure. But Jesus, yeah, this is just kind of a mess. I can't put my finger on exactly why. Dragon, I honestly just think it's because there's way too many moving parts. It's like this season they really tried to go. This season, I feel like the show almost became a parody of itself, where they tried to tackle so many issues. It's like, sorry, folks, some hot button topics coming up here, but we're tackling abortion, we're tackling gun violence, we're tackling drug addiction, we're tackling rape culture. We're tackling SJW culture in a way that I'm honestly not sure is supposed to be a parody of that culture or not. Dragon, I don't know. I mean, it's just all over the place, man. So yeah, this was easily the weakest season yet for me. I mean, season 1 was damn effective at telling a compelling story. I just felt a little exploited by it. Like I said, season 2 maybe not as effective, but I feel like it's probably the most even of the three. And then season 3 just went off the rails. It really did. So I'm curious what your reaction is.
Yeah, I think we're going to be simpatico on a lot of things here. I really do, because I was really mixed on season 3. Let me put it to you this way: I think I figured out what specifically went wrong on a lot of things, but I love the story and the murder mystery idea. Of course, that just being the big selling point. That
sold me, man. That really sold me. I did not know how they were going to go about a season 3, and I thought the murder mystery was a great conceit. I really did. That made me really excited for this season.
I mean, again, like this is the murder mystery. I think the story, the big themes of the story, I think are really interesting of this season. And we tightened some focus a little bit more than season 2, one could argue, but emphasis on the but here. But I think narratively it was too ambitious, bit off way more than it could chew, and I think that led to a lot of problems that just basically didn't fix itself as it went along. And I mean, basically, I think they kind of evened out barely enough, but I mean, basically the point where they can get to the end of the season, but still, there's a lot of narrative issues with this season. Basically, in episode 1 that just carries over in all the other ones and doesn't help. basically, I feel the best way I can put it, Tiki, is that this season is the first one to really suffer from the 13 episodes locked in there. Where, of course, ordinarily Netflix can go between 8 and 13 episodes. Of course, this show of all shows, 13 reasons why. They are landlocked in 13. This one definitely feels like. Here's the thing. The first watch, I kind of felt there was padding. And I don't know if I can necessarily. There's padding, but I can't necessarily think of what they could have. I can't say there's like one episode we could cut entirely. It just feels a lot of micro things.
It's not like we have an episode like the Zach episode in season 1 or any of the Ryan episodes. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. I can't say we can't specifically take out one episode, but it just feels like things you kind of piled up to the point where now there's you know what I mean though. It feels padded, doesn't it? It feels like we're just stretching to get the 13 episodes. Where okay, like Clay being brought in for questioning for the umpteenth time just gets tired after a while.
That's got to be a cliffhanger for at least 3 or 4 of the episodes.
I'm saying you can only do that so many times before it starts to get old and like, okay, when's the lawyer coming in? And look, I'm a guy who I live and breathe procedural, man. I do. So you don't. That's one thing. But again, doing it in a short form in kind of a 13 episode story like this, it can get old real fast. It can. So basically, it's a good season, but it was a very frustrating watch for me. It really was.
Dragon, can I just, I'm not usually one to bring up issues like this, but I feel like it's very simpatico with this show at this point that it's going to be problematic with this. And I honestly could not get this idea out of my head the whole time I was watching this season. Folks, plain and simply, no matter what side of the political spectrum you lie on, this season's got 2 main redemption arcs. One is for a rapist, and the other is for a potential school shooter. Just make of that what you will. Dragon, I don't know about you, but just politically, I find that to be very, very problematic.
That's something we might disagree because I really love that. I gotta be honest, but we'll get into.
I'm not saying it wasn't handled well. I'm just saying, in this climate, I don't necessarily think it helps the show's reputation. Like, does that make sense? Like, it made me uncomfortable. Maybe the point is that it's supposed to make me uncomfortable. I don't know. I think the Tyler stuff was handled a lot better than the Bryce stuff. The Bryce stuff, I feel, is kind of where they bit off a little bit more than they could chew in terms of, like, making him redeemable. I don't know.
Let me put it to you this way. I would argue this. I would argue that, and you can tell this has been happening since season 2, but you can tell it even more so this season. This season, you can tell their backs are up against the wall when at the start of every season now, like the start of this season, they had like, the big video where they tell you like, hey, of course, if you have any serious concerns about suicide and, or basically the issues that are brought up, don't watch it alone, all that sort of stuff. Basically, they're really covering themselves because there's been a huge outcry over this show, over the content that they discuss and they talk about. From what I heard, I still haven't looked back on. I feel guilty for not looking back on, see if they took out some of the content from the last episode.
What I heard, Dragon, I definitely think that that a lot of the graphic content from the Hannah suicide scene is cut. And you mentioned the rape scene from last season.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about right now. That's the thing I can't remember if they.
Yeah, I haven't gone back and looked at that either. I wouldn't be surprised if some of that was cut also. Ironically enough, I feel like both those scenes are very simpatico with each other.
Well, the one from season 2 it disturbs me even more, if I'm being frank. Just like how just gruesome that one is, and just the lingering, and oh god, it's horrible. Like it's like happening as I mean, again, they're 2 very different, very horrifying things, mind you. Again, there's more of a psychological.
I feel like the one from season 2 is more psychological, whereas the one from season 1 is just more visually visceral, and that's why it's like I go out of my way to avoid footage for that.
You know what's funny? I kind of feel the opposite. I feel the one from season 1 is more psychological, and I feel the one from season 2 that's the more visceral, and like it's more like what you're seeing is just so horrific. That's I don't know.
I don't know, man. You see those fucking wrists just slit open, and it's not pretty at all, dude.
But for me, it's the whole you can't go back psychological element of it. That's the thing that disturbs me. It's like it's like the timing of it anyway. So I don't want to linger on that too much. But you understand what you understand what I'm getting at. What I'm saying is, with all of these things, 30 Reasons has developed. I believe there's some statistical thing where the percentages are kind of going are going wild for imitations and basically people taking the message of the show wrong, and they're really covering themselves. And like now at the end of every episode, before they even have like the autoplay on for the next episode, they wait until you hear the audio of like, make sure you go to 13reasonswhy.com to the seek help, which is a noble thing. Don't get me wrong, but you can definitely tell, especially when they start the season, like a little introduction of like all the cast there, and of course we end on Bryce too. I feel that's communicated to me is like we end on the monstrous Bryce, implying to me that okay, Bryce is going to be a huge linchpin of the season, stuff that's going to happen with him. That kind of at the start, I thought, oh god, Bryce is going to do more horrific stuff. And they're trying to say, hey, remember he's lovable Justin Prentice in real life. He's not.
Right.
Of course, it was probably for other reasons. Like we're going to try to make him likable. So. Which, by the way, before we go any further, I got to ask you this too. See, maybe I shouldn't ask you this on air. I don't know, but
no, by all means, ask me on air.
Does Justin Prentice remind you? Does he seem like a contender for Poncio in a biopic to you after watching this season? Just ordinarily, I felt this way. I just want to get your read on that. Now you've seen.
I can see it now that you bring it up.
I've been saying it because we've been flirting around Jack Black, but again, if you want the younger, like more,
Jack Black wouldn't work. Jack Black's way too old.
Jack Black has the talent, but seriously, Prentice, he's got range. He's a nice guy in real life, and again, I'm saying in terms of look and acting capability, he could be a Poncio. It would be it wouldn't be easy, but he could be a Poncio.
All right.
Anyway, getting back onto our road.
I thought you didn't want to ask me on air because it was like some sort of like private issue that relates to my own issues. So
no, it was just
by all means ask me.
No, it was just again, Ponce kind of a non sequitur and all this. That's why.
No, you're right.
Okay. Anyway, so our ridiculous biopic.
What would a JGI parody of this show look like?
Oh God, I don't want to even. The letters they would. Well, I can't say the letters they would. The emails they would get.
It would look like season 3, Dragon. That's the joke. You get it? I made a funny.
Right.
Because season 3 is a parody of the show.
Gotcha. And anyway, you know what's funny though? Again, what season? I was going to reference this, but again, I just we're very simpatico on the issue. You know what? The Riverdale season 3 really went off the rails, and again, it's the other teen show. It's a more self-aware teen show, if you will. Like, they know what they're doing.
Sure.
And let's say season 3 for me, he did culty stuff, and you know how I feel about culty stuff. But the point being, even at cult stuff aside, the second half of season 3 of Riverdale, they really go off the rails, and I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like teen shows in season 3s. Maybe there's like a pattern there. I don't know. Just gonna put that out there. Anyway, getting back on topic. So again, I guess we should just dive right into it. Let's just break down the episodes, kind of talk about the big highlights, the big talking points, if you will, and of course, just kind of those centered characters, as it all would be.
All right, let's do it. So episode 1. Yeah, I'm the new girl. We have this listed as an Ani-centric episode.
So again, I have like the one sentence sell for each of these two, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So basically, this introduces Ani. For those who just may have like binged it, and like want to know, I forgot what goes where. Don't worry, folks, we got you covered. It's we introduce Ani. Bryce goes missing, and we cover the spring fling aftermath. At least the first, like the big cliffhanger part of it from season 2. So okay, there you go.
So I got to tell you, man, the narrative structure of this was just wonky from the start, and I think you and I are simpatico on that.
I was so disheartened. I shouldn't say this. I was so like worried, like, oh no, this is not shaping up. I don't want to just be like, I don't want to be overanalyzing when watching it for the first time. I was like, I'm having legit trouble. I usually never have this. I'm having legit trouble tracking what's going where.
Dude, the color correction in the season and like. It's all kinds of. I mean, I think eventually it irons out by like maybe the 3rd or 4th episode, and I can pretty much tell, like what timeline is supposed to be where.
You get used to it.
It's hard. It's a lot to digest in a first watch when you're just jumping back into it.
See, the color correction thing is the fact that 13 Reasons many a time can just kind of be kind of a pale blue when you're inside the school, like it's kind of that it's darn it, I'm just trying, kind of the way the hallways are illuminated, that sort of thing. Fluorescent, thank you. Yes, fluorescent look to the whole place. And it can kind of drown out the colors a little bit, and especially in the marketing, the way they do that. And again, it just kind of seems like because that's kind of been a natural place for 2 seasons. Whenever you're in the school, now they're messing with the brightness, the contrast. I was like, I'm so used to it just in the regular day to day.
Right.
I mean, I guess they've always kind of done that, where again the present's really kind of sad, and then the past is a little bit more vibrant in the color. But again, it's still. Let me put it this way: I think I nailed down what to do wrong narratively here. So, I think as you and I are kind of spotting on here, it's a mistake to have so many running narratives in play all the way in the first episode here. Where one thing I tracked in. You know how many narratives we have going on at least in episode 1. Okay.
Oh dear. I guess. Can I guess?
Yes, to guess a number.
Is it at least 6?
Well, here's the thing. I kind of narrow it down to 4. You're not necessarily wrong. I mean, it gets to be more than. Here's the thing. As it goes forward, it becomes more than 4. I'm just saying in episode 1 alone, it's 4.
Okay.
So just listen for simplicity's
So
sake.
you've got Bryce disappearing. You've got the aftermath of the spring fling. What else is in there?
Well, here's what I got. So you have the interview, which of course basically the big framing device of the whole season. The whole reason for our narration is, ordinarily we'd have Hannah Baker doing it. But if you go back to season 1 for comparison, here we have Ani doing it, basically as a knockoff Hannah Baker, pretty much. She's being all flowery in the way she's describing the events, which of course, given the thing, the minute I saw, because here's the thing, I thought it was going to be with a reporter, which would have made more sense, but it's during an interview. Like, how is she allowed to be all flowery in her dialogue during an interview like this? That's what I still can't buy that.
Well, we'll get into that because, oh man, I think the Ani character, man, I don't know, it's missed potential, Dragon.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I like a lot of what they did with her in the context of the actual mystery, like especially the misdirects with Clay and everything. But I think that here's the thing. I think that the interview structure could have worked, but like you said, Dragon, the problem with the interview structure is just that. It's the fact that it's way too just casual conversation, and it's written in a way where it very much feels like the way that a young adult novel is written, and if that's the goal, then I mean, I guess well done. The original is a young adult novel.
But that's what I'm saying. It just feels like we're double dipping in the Hannah Baker well again with someone who clearly is not the same thing.
Right. We're dipping in that same well of like the quippy, sarcastic, cynical girl who's gonna give her POV of the goings down at Liberty High. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, initially I was just feeling we were kind of doing the same thing. I was going to see where they went with it, and of course you realize, okay, she's in an interview, like an interrogation. It's like, okay, this really makes no sense at all, and that's kind of a problem. You hinge your whole season on that.
I do like how it ultimately pays off. I think the ultimate payoff of how she gets to that point where she's in the interview and what the interview leads to is satisfying. I will give it that much.
And I think it adjusts itself enough, but let me put it this way. I like the idea. I like the idea that, okay, we see our events link into what she's been saying the whole time. I love that idea, but again, it feels a little, as we're kind of talking about with style here, it feels a little too young adult novel.
Right, yeah.
So once we have the interview, which kind of frames everything, we have what's going on in the present, so that's 2 already. Then we have 2 in one episode. We have 2 past narratives going on here, at least. Okay, we have basically the past stuff, which ordinarily, Tiki, we have 3 things going on every episode. Okay, and then we splinter things off. So in this episode, we splinter things off in the past because 1, we have the thing I think everybody really wants to know: the spring fling events. So we have that, Tyler and the spring fling. And then we have, there's the thing that really bothered me and still kind of bothers me looking back on the homecoming and the Bryce Walker affair. So
the homecoming shit was not paid off well, Dragon. This is like literally the last thing we talked about before we came on tonight. I had faith, Dragon. I had faith that they were going to play the long con with this thing, and that at the end it was going to be this big, like, brutal. Basically, what I was expecting the homecoming was going to be as brutal as the end of season 2 or season 1. We are basically going to get like the equivalent to that. And Dragon, instead, it's just another dumb fight and another dumb protest, and it's literally not anything that we haven't seen before on this show. And that was a big letdown, man. That was the biggest letdown. I almost sent you an email rant. I was so disappointed in that, Dragon. I mean, I do think they course correct some things in the last 2 episodes, but man, the ultimate reveal of the especially the way they build it up in that episode, like, oh, this shit's gonna be the craziest shit to ever rock Liberty High.
Because they build it up for 10 episodes.
Right. All right. Well, we're jumping ahead a little bit.
Okay. Well, here's what I want to Here's what I want to specify in terms of episode 1. The biggest problem, again, the structure of all things here with the homecoming stuff. Before we have to discuss what the homecoming stuff actually is, it's just the fact that we're talking about the spring fling. We're talking about homecoming. Of course, you think homecoming. Of course, I know there's the game component of it, but you think
homecoming. Is always in the fall, so I think that's the way that the writers were, going to distinguish those two.
Yeah, what I'm saying is you think of like the homecoming dance, and I was thinking, we're going from. I was confusing the dances because I couldn't remember if it was the spring, which one was the event from last season. It's been a while because I couldn't keep. I thought it was like 2 different dances. Like, wait, there's another dance. What did I miss?
Well, I mean, like I said, I think that the writers probably just intended you to make the connection that homecomings usually happen in the fall, and then the spring fling is in spring. That's probably the intent. You're right. I wish they would have made it more clear, but I think the writers kind of had too much faith in the homecoming kind of spelling it out.
That's what I'm saying. But I mean, yeah, they couldn't say game. They couldn't say homecoming game once.
Yeah.
All this build up in episode 1, you can't say game. Anyway, the point being, it's not clear from the start, and I'll give them some slack here. Again, I understand it's a mystery, and I respect you're going to put some things in play, but I just feel it's too much catch-up in episode 1. There's too much things to get caught up on. This bridges to the other complaint with Ani's. And Ani, look, she's too established. For me, and this might sound like, well, what do you mean is a problem? It's like, look, she's a little too established from the first episode. She's in too much play, if you follow me here. It's like, she's too well established. She has too many relationships that are in play that we're just playing all this catch up on in episode 1. Where again, I understand it's a mystery, but still, it's like I think with those 4 plot lines going on, we know this girl's really important. I'd like to know a little bit about her before we jump into this. And we don't have like a thing with Hannah Baker where we're learning about her very linearly through the past. Like, again, she's not in the main narrative. She's talked about in the main narrative, but she is. She's in the flashbacks, and we learn about her very straightforward. Here, it's like, okay, so we have 2 Anis to get to know, the present Ani and the past Ani, and again, I'm having trouble keeping track on one before the other at the start,
And then again, I feel like one of the big kind of things that the writers were trying to sell on her character is that it's not just the present and the past Ani, but this is a character who wears a ton of different masks.
Yeah,
and that makes it all confusing.
Basically, we take something with Hannah's character, where Hannah, we made this into a thing we called her on season 2, which I really liked with that character. We kind of called her. Hannah wasn't an angel; she wasn't perfect. And here we kind of took we took a character flaw, and I feel we didn't really make it that charming. I think we're just pretending it's not an issue, but I think Ani's really nosy. At least that's how she comes across to me at the start of the season going on. Where she just feels really nosy. She kind of inserts herself into all of her stories, and that's why she's a big player this season. Like, she's just really nosy. Did you get any of that at all, or was it just?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, no doubt. It's definitely an issue.
I mean, what I can say for in a positive way, I do love the idea of we have an outsider who gets to know Bryce Walker, which kind of allows us for
That is a good conceit.
We have 2. Okay, let me talk about the things I love about this season. Just kind of setting things up for 1. Basically, these are the main stories we have going on through like the whole Tyler and Bryce of it all here. So. Okay. We have 2 big thematic ideas going on here. We have basically sympathy for the devil is the Bryce story. It's kind of, we're building sympathy for the devil for the whole season with him, and kind of the more we learn about him as we go forward. And with Tyler, it's kind of a redemption in the aftermath. It's kind of a story of aftermath, more accurately, I guess, kind of a sort of a redemption, I suppose. Mm-hmm. We invert the roots of the show. The roots of the show in premise is it's the fallout of death. In this case, we invert the fallout of death with the fallout of life. Okay, we didn't have the negative ending we thought season 2 was hinging on. Instead, we put our money where our mouth is. What we've been saying with all these all the little infomercials for the hotlines and everything, which again are very warranted. But again, we're calling ourselves, okay, you want change, you want to affect change. We all want to talk, we want to be there for each other. Well, prove it. You have a shooter who was about to do all this damage by a miracle. That did not happen. What do you do now? Are you going to be there for him? Are you going to sell him out? Are we going to? I shouldn't say just sell him out, because obviously I don't want to don't want to advertise anything, but you know what I mean. It's like, we're going to come together, support someone in our community who is very much in need. You know?
I mean, I hate to say this, but I think if it came as close to Tyler did at the end of season 2, like where he's literally got a trunk full of guns with the intent to kill. Dragon, I'm sorry, but in the real world, you sell that fucker out.
Well, that's what I mean. I know in the real world, obviously that's a different situation. What I mean is, again, taking a character within the show, you're going to have somebody. Okay, so if we take a troubled individual, again, the whole school shooter, yes, that's a buy. I get it. But you take a troubled individual, and we're preaching change, and that we can help people in need, and we all come together and kind of watch them. I mean, that's kind of an empowering idea. It's kind of nice.
I do like how many steps they took to to ensure that he got the help that he needed. That was a nice touch.
That's what I'm saying. Like, we're taking that theme of change, and like Jessica, this whole season, she wants change. And we're kind of seeing that through. Okay, how do we? Basically, we're asking the logistical. How do we exact change? Like, how do we make this a reality? Are we all talk? Or are we going to do something? So that's kind of that's what we're doing via the Tyler story. It's kind of got me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I thought it was cool. And of course, like when he returns to school, oh my god, the moment when he returns to school, and like of course we know, and I'm still traumatized what happened to him at the end of season 2. Because again, it's like I've always said with the end of season 2, it's like, you know what? Again, I cannot advocate what Tyler almost did. I can't advocate what there, but again, seeing what happened to him through that whole season, you don't condone it, but you get it. You get what would bring him to that place after everything that happened to him. You know.
Sure.
I mean, given that that bathroom scene, of course, this Montgomery, just Monty's like like bumping into him, just kind of taunting him, like, oh, and does he? I can't do this. He's like, I love that moment where it's like, but he has the support net around him. It's nice. I'm going to call BS on a few things here because it seems that we're probably going to have to do that this season a couple times here, just to keep it brief. We try to say some things about systematic corruption, and like Mrs. Walker, she just walks into the interrogation, and throughout the season, constantly we have these quote unquote arrest chats, where you're not under arrest, but you're basically like, we arrest Monty after he's been beaten by his father. He's like, we're bringing him in. It's like, how is that not an arrest?
Yeah.
And point being, like, we're making a lot of the system's always been something in question with 13 Reasons Why. We're kind of making it big. Okay, we're talking about the legal system this time, not the school system, the legal system.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. And it basically the whole season, it's kind of like, the whole gist of it is that, oh no, we're framing Clay, and it's like once the legal system has their eyes on someone, then there's no real going back. And I mean, I think that was done well enough.
Yeah, I do like for the most part, I like the investigative touches here. Like, I love that what kind of starts our mystery and everything here is Clay and Justin, of course, by the way. I love that they're living in that little apartment. We continue the brother dynamic between them. They live in that little kind of a shed in the back that kind of is now like a mini apartment. Look nice. They look at the game photo, and we kind of put the pieces together of, okay, hey, why would Zach not tell? Zach knew that Bryce, basically crippled him for the season. Why would he report the wrong guy if he got a clear view of him? So again, this kind of sets things off, and we have like the big Clay sends the I'll effing kill you text to Bryce, which of course is going to be very incriminating. Given if you came into the season expecting Bryce to be killed like we all did, then this is not going to pan out well for him.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that brings us to 2, I guess.
All right, episode 2. If you're breathing, you're lying.
No, if you're breathing, you're a liar.
Oh, I'm sorry. If you're breathing, you're a liar.
Hey, Tiki, you were lying about that title. You must be breathing.
Regardless, very, very corny titles this season, I think.
So I guess the sell for this one is it's a follow-up on Chloe becoming pregnant at the end of last season, and we find Bryce's body. So that's the episode in a nutshell.
I'm not even going to beat around the bush with this one. I mean, this was my least favorite episode of the season, and the reason why, and I'm not saying that the whole pro-choice debate is, obviously that's an important debate to have, but my problem with this episode is that, my God, it was so on the nose. I mean, it really just went all out with whole, like, do you get it? Do you get the message that we're trying to send? You know what I mean?
Let me put it this way. So here's the thing. We do it this episode, but I think we do it better in like the penultimate episode with Zach. But let me put it this way. The structure I imagine going into this season, again with the cell of okay, who killed Bryce Walker? I imagine going into it this season is okay, each episode, like our flashback device, again, from our linear flashback device, the way it probably should have gone is okay, we start the season, Bryce is dead, we want to find out who did it, and we flash back to a suspect per episode, right?
Uh-huh.
And we kind of did that this season, but again, we convoluted things with all the spinning plates. And again, this episode, in retrospect, I mean, we kind of look at Zach as a suspect, but then we kind of get distracted with the abortion story, which again, it's a good story, but again, it kind of distracts from that main plot. But again, we don't know Bryce is dead yet, so there's some wiggle room there, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I don't want to get too political with this, and of course, I agree with I do agree with the message of the episode. I just want to state that out up front,
Yeah, sure.
Not to get too political about it. But like I said, I think it's done in such a ham-fisted way of like, the sad music and the montage and, and I don't know, man. To me, it almost kind of represents like maybe sort of like some of the criticisms of this show, how they're able to take an issue that is a very important real life issue and just kind of frame it as like a very special episode of a TV melodrama.
I hear what you're saying. I didn't quite see it that way, but then again, I don't know. Maybe it just went over my head. Well, here's what struck me about it, though. What struck me about it was kind of the authenticity and like the picketers and the protesters outside, like that really haunting bit where the lady comes out as an escort. Initially, again, they had me, man. They fooled me because I was thinking, yeah, because they have those crazies outside the place, and they're just protesters and basically making anyone who's coming in there to take care of business feel really bad. And you have like an escort, which makes sense. Oh yeah, hey, a little escort to help them kind of make their way through the crowd. And like halfway across the way, she puts like essentially a symbol of a
Oh my
dead
god,
fetus in there.
that
It's like
was
disturbing.
honest to God, that might be the most disturbing moment of the whole season.
That's what I'm saying, because it had me. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah, it had me too.
Yeah. But on Zach Dempsey, man, I love Zach Dempsey. I don't know about you. I think Zach Dempsey's super likable.
I think Zach Dempsey is the most pure-hearted character on the show. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I like that he's basically we have like the one jock, and that's kind of his whole arc this season too, because he's trying to be the one jock taking responsibility. He doesn't want to be remembered for like the clubhouse where all the girls were violated and all the bad stuff. He wants to move on. Just kind of like let's just play freaking football, guys. Like let's just not let's not be infamous. Let's not be the bullies that we once were. And he's taking responsibility. He's taking responsibility in the figurative sense with the team. And he's also taking responsibility. I'm sorry, he's taking the responsibility in the literal sense with the team. He's taking responsibility as well with literally for Bryce's actions. With what he did to Chloe and the whole. He says he's there to support Chloe.
Mm-hmm.
So he's taking responsibility for Bryce's accounts in many ways, I suppose. Let's see. Alex stands up to Monty in the bathroom.
I feel like honestly, you're not wrong about any of the stuff you just said with Zach. I think the only problem with the Zach stuff is that I feel like it's a little bit too much of a repeat of the Zach and Hannah storyline from season 2, where it's like, oh, look, Zach is having another secretive relationship that's very good-natured, but also maybe not that well-advised.
It's fair, but it's funny, and I could be wrong, because, I might have missed it, but I could have sworn that, because basically Zach makes the point that he's not necessarily dating her, but I thought they were just like, are they just friends, or is there any dating going on remote? I know he probably likes her, but I don't think they were officially dating at all during this. At least that was my
I don't think they were dating, but I don't know.
Let's see.
So it's a sticky wicket for him.
That's a fair, yeah, sure. All right, so let's see. Alex stands up to Monty in the bathroom, pulls a knife on him. So Alex definitely is going through. Alex definitely goes through a transformation this season. Alex has been a very transformative character in the whole series, if you really think about it. He's kind of like a friendly average Joe who can, of course, he in the first season, and of course, by the end of that season, going into 2, he tries to he tries to end things, and of course that it's like he then is well, yes, he's handicapped, right? So of course he's with the cane and everything. Of course, he's kind of work and basically trying to find his strength again in season 2, and then we continue that arc. But what do we define strength as? So we kind of foreshadow how bad things are going to go, how bad things are kind of internally going for Alex here, where Alex, I'm sorry, in pulling a knife on Monty, it's like he has like a newfound confidence about him, which of course we know if you rewatch the season, you know absolutely why he's so confident, why he's so kind of dangerous all of a sudden. Because oh my god, yeah, Alex has seen stuff. To put it lightly, folks, Alex has seen some stuff.
Alex, I will admit he is a transformative character, but I feel like his storyline is a little bit scattered throughout the season. And of course, without giving anything away, he is a pretty pivotal character in the season. And I don't know, it just feels like he was almost kind of like sprinkled throughout the season, but never really given a main storyline except for the whole, steroids thing, which we'll get into as that develops.
Sure. Yeah, let me see. So another issue that we have, again, we're squeezing in issues all over the place here. Where Tony gets profiled a lot, and he kind of beaten down by the system. To put it lightly, he gets more beaten down as the thing goes on, as we find out what has caused Tony's situation in the first place. But he's really, here he's like the first guy who's kind of visited by the sheriff's department on a regular basis because he has a record, and again, just because he has a record, he is who he is. Keeps getting visited. He's the top suspect. Of course, it's really unfair to him.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, Jessica. She's running for president. She's very much she's a role model for the survivor. For the survivors, she's kind of put together the HO, the hands off movement.
Okay, can we talk about Casey?
Yeah, I was gonna wait, but if you want, we can get into it now. Sure. I mean,
man, I do not understand. I really don't understand what the intention was with the Casey character. I really don't. Like, I don't know if she's supposed to be an admirable character. I don't know if she's supposed to be like some sort of parody of an SJW.
I think that's the case.
I think the most likely interpretation that I had was that she's supposed to be like an over the top character that kind of sees the error of her ways by the end of the season. But Dragon, the problem with that is that it's so over the top that it does veer into parody. It really does.
I think it's parody for the sense of a reality check. I think Casey is intended to be kind of like, yes, she's passionate, but it's a cautionary tale of like, guys, this can happen if you go too far, or again, debatably if you go too far. Because I think like the whole, again, I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but the whole protesting funeral idea, like that's kind of an extreme.
I mean, with Casey, I will say that none of her screen time was boring.
Yeah.
I was always very interested to see what this fucking crazy person was going to do next.
Casey is coming from an understandable place, but it's going off the rails, and she's not checking herself on that sort of thing. And again, I think that's the cautionary tale for SJWs, one could argue, I guess, right?
Exactly. All right.
Let's see. I'm trying to think. We already kind of covered the abortion issue. Let's see. All right. Yeah, I think we're all covered here. Okay.
Okay. Episode 3: The good person is indistinguishable from the bad.
So this is
a Jessica-centric episode.
It's basically Jessica's healing episode. It's kind of where we pick up, like, so how does Jessica, after kind of coming forward in a big way in season 2, like how does she kind of? It's kind of like her aftermath in the crux of the season. Like, so now she's gone public. What is she going to do with that? We see she's run for president. Now we kind of see how she's. This is more about her sexual healing, I guess, to be blunt about it.
This is probably my least favorite episode of the season. Then. I'm not saying that the sexual healing isn't a valid thing. Of course it is. And taking back your own body and everything, that's totally valid. Dragon, my problem is like it's just these characters are in high school and there's a lot of graphic sex and it's just very, very uncomfortable.
Yeah, this season was very.
I don't know what the hell is up with this season and that, but it's just there's a lot of it, man.
Yeah, to put it, I guess the kind of a poor way to put it was that this season was very, very sexy or sex oriented. One could say,
it was very sexually charged. It really was.
It was, yes. Yeah, that's the thing. So here's the thing. I think there's a big missed opportunity with that, Tiki. I feel there's one thing they could have. There's kind of a hanging fruit with all this, where I would argue the bigger point. You can tell me if I'm wrong here. This is a thought that occurred to me, and maybe it just occurred to me. I don't know, but. So Jessica, the idea is, she, as you mentioned, she kind of takes back her own identity. She's kind of becoming comfortable with herself sexually again, but now she's kind of the aggressor within the relationship. She's kind of, she's the top, if you will. She's, again, it's probably a poor way of putting it, but you know what I mean. She's she's taking charge, taking an active role.
I mean, I think there is a noble quality to that. Like I can, that's a relatable thing.
Well, sure. But what I'm getting at is, I wonder if, I think what we're saying, but we're not saying it. I think it'd be more interesting if they said it. Is that she's taking charge, but is she in some ways, is there like a trauma within that? Like, is she becoming her own abuser? Is she taking charge in a way it's like someone took control of you, you're never going to be
Not
that way
if that's
again?
consensual.
I mean, that's fair. It's, I don't know. I guess the thought occurred to me, especially, I think things get a little bit muddy when we find out about Justin later in the season. Maybe that's, I don't know, the point. I don't know. It's a thought that occurred to me. Maybe it's not a missed opportunity. I'm just reading too much into it. Perfectly possible. All right.
Okay.
Let's see. Let me see if there's any other.
I mean, honestly, Dragon, this is probably the most forgettable episode of the season. I really can't remember much that happens.
My least favorite part of the mysteries in this episode. Okay, we have the dumb misdirect with Justin and Jessica. Like, maybe they're in cahoots together, and they basically Clay and Ani, being kind of amateur investigators, they kind of misinterpret them kind of being paired up together and kind of chatting a lot as they're conspiring. They did something.
Oh yeah, right.
That scene is painful. I'm sorry.
It is.
It just, it's not helping. Oh, by the way, Courtney. So Courtney, I like that they kept Courtney minimal. By the way, we kept her.
I like how
minimal.
They kind of like Jar Jar Binks to Courtney.
They did, yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, she's there, but we all know we don't want her, so she's just kind of gonna kind of quietly resign, and that'll be that.
Yeah.
I gotta say, I kind of feel bad for Ryan. Like, out of the three characters that they really just completely axed this season, Ryan's the one that I wouldn't mind if they checked in on.
Oh my God, you're right. I completely forgot about Ryan. Yeah.
Yeah. Ryan's completely gone. He's nowhere to be found.
What did we do with it? Do you remember anything specifically major we did with him in season 2? I'm sure I remember how big.
Not really. I'm sure there was some stuff with him
because he wrote the article. The Grand of the Whole. He basically published her writing without her, without her consent, I believe. Anyway. God, what was I? All right, so let's see. We have that reflection of that, because you remember Alex and Jessica. They've been friends a little bit more ever since the beginning, and my heart goes out to Alex here, because Alex has passed over yet again through no real fault of his own here. She's not vocalizing what's wrong with the relationship to him, and she kind of cast him aside for Justin, who, again, deep down, I mean, we kind of bring this up a number of times, Justin is kind of bad for her, but they do really like each other. They're flawed people. So again, I don't mean flawed like a negative.
Well, they do bring up the Sid and Nancy dynamic quite a bit, which I think is appropriate.
Yeah.
Makes me kind of wonder if they're still planning on having those characters meet a tragic end, considering all the Sid and Nancy implications.
It's a very interesting point. I didn't think about that. Maybe.
Yeah, we'll see.
Let's see. But let me put it this way. So I think, thematically, not all the titles, but some of the titles do actually have some thematic crux to your, like, if you're breathing, you're lying, you're a liar. And of course, that whole thing is like, if you're, obviously, basically the idea is that the real truth about Bryce comes out after he's dead. So the idea is like no one, I think what they're saying is no one, basically everything you do is a lie until after you're dead. Then the truth will come out, being the idea, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, sure.
And here, the good person is indistinguishable from the bad. I think what we're saying here is this kind of sets up maybe a thematic idea that all the characters are culpable, for their morally gray actions, which of course is going to be a big thing by the end of the season. I think we're kind of putting into play with this title. I'd argue that maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler with so we have Tyler with the photos. So the idea is that Tyler, he's seen the crime scene of Bryce Walker. He's taking photos and he has a gun, and we kind of put into play that, oh God, Tyler has a gun, and he might be falling off the wagon. And let me tell you something really ticked me off. Okay, because I forget when exactly this is introduced, so I got to bring this up. The cause of death really bothers me. Did it bother you?
Remind me exactly what it is.
The fact that it keeps changing, that's what bothers. So initially it was a gunshot wound.
Yeah. It was a gunshot wound, and I gotta say, by the time we get to the reveal, I forgot that it wasn't a gunshot wound.
See, here's the thing. So the reason I'm bringing it up right now is the fact that, okay, they're misdirecting us. That, okay, Tyler may have done the job because, he has the gunshot wound, which, again, it's pretty linear, right?
And it's just like, and then it's literally just like, no, it's not a gunshot wound because the writers wanted to misdirect you.
Like, Tiki, I'm no full-on forensics expert. I dabble, but I'm no forensics expert here. But as far as I know, and again, I'm no slouch, but I'm no expert by any stretch here. As far as I know, as far as I'm aware, a gunshot wound, if you test the ballistics on a gunshot wound, it's not going to turn into death by beating or drowning, for that matter.
Yeah.
Okay, those are three very different causes.
It really makes no sense. Hey, Krunk, does it make sense? No, by all accounts, it doesn't make any sense. Thanks, Krunk.
Because I don't really see how, a hole in the head is a lot different from a beating. I mean, unless there's like a weird puncture, which, again, as far as I can tell, that'd be, I don't know. It's all really messed up the way that transformed.
Right, I hear ya. I was totally on the same page.
Anyway, it's like three different causes. I don't know. It's all ridiculous. I understand. See, and I know causes can change, but from gunshot wound to beating, that's
to drowning.
That's what I'm saying. Like, drowning is something.
Why was drowning not even in the question?
Because he's found in the water.
That's what I'm saying. Like, why? Like, it would be very, like, why has no one even considered that maybe he just got drunk and fell off a bridge or something?
Well, I mean, again, there's like injuries on the head, so that's the only thing. Again, sometimes drowning can legitimately sneak up on you. So I'm not really that much mad about the drowning, but again, gunshot wound to beating, that's the thing that bothers me more so. Because then how does, like, there's either a hole in the head or there's a hole in the body or there isn't. I don't know.
Right.
Anywho, sorry, getting back on
No,
point. Let's go to episode 4.
Okay, episode 4. Angry, young, and man. Yes, man!
Oh god. Okay, so this is basically the suspenseful Tyler. This is basically the suspenseful Tyler has a gun episode.
Yeah, and Dragon, honestly, this episode just kind of feels like we're going through the motions.
Yeah, this one might be.
Like, oh, Tyler has a gun, but is he going to use it for what we think he's going to use it for? No, he's going to use it in a kind of empowering way.
I feel they really jumped. No, sorry, I'm sorry, I just realized pun intended here. They jumped the gun on this one. Where this is an episode where this one should, if this one came later in the season, where you think, oh man, he's made all that progress, and then you do something like this, I think it might have been more warranted. Doing it by episode 4 though, and well, the season can't end after 4 if they stop them. So.
Yeah, right.
I basically I like the suspenseful angle and the idea. Clay has some trauma, of course, and here's the thing. I wish we addressed that a little bit more, and we do give him closure, but it's still like a sense that Clay took a very big risk in kind of doing what he did. And many people, of course, the very stern critics have said, if anyone ever tried that, we're abdicating people be heroes in these situations, which is very reckless. And in all fairness, they do call him out on that this season.
I feel like they do call it out, but I feel like the aftermath isn't enough. Like, I feel like you could have done maybe a whole season of the aftermath, and that's just not this. Like, if anything, I feel like the aftermath is maybe a little more glossed over than I would have hoped.
Now, I don't know if they're saving this for season 4 or something. A part of me wonders if perhaps, like, for me, the aftermath I was expecting with that whole thing with Clay is that the parents find out and then they're really worried about Clay's decision-making in these situations and stuff, that they take a little bit more of an active role. That's what I expected. That didn't happen. And again, given the fact that, let's just say, that situation may rear its head in season 4, I don't know. We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Anywho, so basically, overall, it's very, very suspenseful over, Tyler keeping a gun just in case, basically in case things, presumably in case things get too much, he'll probably take himself out.
What I thought was corny was the whole, the mysterious object in the bag.
Yeah, you're right. We did do that a lot. Yeah, the fact that it turned out to be a camera, that was a very gun-looking bag. I don't know. I would have bet you a gun as well.
Oh no! What can that fucking thing in the bag be? It can only be one thing.
Clay in the egg bay. I like the movie. By the way, it's the Crestmont. I like the fact that the Crestmont came back. It's a nice set. I like seeing the Crestmont.
Okay, I'll tell you my favorite detail of the how we use the Crestmont. It's a small blink and you miss it line of dialogue, but deep into the heart of the season, I believe after when Clay's about to be arrested, we have a line where Clay's father Clay says that his father is at the Crestmont pretending that life isn't happening. I like that line, Dragon. There's something very relatable in that. You know what I mean?
That is a good line about the
Like
escape.
the idea of using a movie theater as an escape from reality, but in a very like somber time.
That's pretty solid.
Yeah. Anyways,
Yeah, of course, Rear Window, we drop a hit again. It's a very suspenseful episode. Yet, so well, and I get the points we reference.
okay, the Rear Window of it all is a little fucking on the nose, if I do say so myself, especially with the Tyler character.
Yeah, that's the thing. You're right. It is on the nose, but it is fitting. You can't take that away from it. It's fitting what happened to him. All right, let's see. So let's see. So basically, again, Clay is he's kind of facing his nightmare, which he's been having the reoccurring dream about, kind of going up against an armed Tyler. Zach makes a very legit debate, basically the debate you kind of made earlier about the whole way again. Like he's in the school with a gun. That's not good. We should call somebody. So Zach makes
well, again, I feel like Zach almost gets he almost gets painted as an antagonist for that, but it's like, no, if anything, we should have had more focus as Zach is the, technically correct choice of what to do in a situation like that. You know what I mean?
On the flip side of things, I do like how we're showing these methods of which the gang are trying to help or kind of try and maintain Tyler. Where like they tell him to take his anger out during the box, and they teach him boxing, so he kind of releases anger in a healthy manner, I suppose. And we have like little sad touches, like he's avoiding the bathroom altogether. He has to go outside to use the
That
bathroom.
was pretty brutal. I love that detail. Yeah,
man. I was just thinking, oh god. So again, the whole suspense thing is, oh god, he's leaving to do something bad, and you realize, oh, he's using the bathroom. So I was like, oh man, poor guy.
uh-huh.
It's I think it's ingenious having Tyler in a group of survivors, with the hands off group, but he can't say why he's there.
Yeah.
Well,
That was
was
good.
ingenious, and then this is where basically Casey Ark gets put in a play where she's really harsh on him initially, and she was really harsh in that scene too, by the way.
She's harsh on life, Dragon.
Or again, I probably would have been shut down if I brought up like anyone in the right mind, I think was protesting at a funeral. It's just kind of like no one really.
It's not good. It's just not a good idea in general. There's a time and a place.
Look, there's protests and you don't protest a funeral. That's where you get into like the like Mr. Rogers has funeral protests. That's the kind of world that we live in, folks. We got to change.
Right.
It's like no one can win. It's always, if you have any public figure or anyone of note, they're always going to protest their funeral. We're not helping anyone, and I think Tyler had a very valid point. He was shut down unfairly. Anyway, let's see. Oh yeah, so
I don't like how stubborn Casey is. It's like I know that they quote unquote redeem her by the end of it, but it's like it really is just unlikable, man.
So I guess the last major thing we should talk about is the whole Tyler and Bryce connect of it all here. So I think we see the power that our abusers have, where Monty, the guy who did that to all of him, did all that to him. And Monty does all that, and he ends up convincing Tyler that Bryce pulled the trigger on that one, that Bryce was responsible, like he told him to do, and therefore, again, he lets his abuser off the hook to go after the guy who commissioned it, which is, again, it's not a rational thing, but again, it's sort of, that's the power that he has. There's a fear built in there. He goes to Bryce, and he's willing to take out the lesser of the threats. Plus, of course, Bryce is incapacitated. His eyes are cut and everything during that scene. He could get away with it.
Yeah.
So again, they kind of amazingly, I never would have called this in a million years. If you told me this happened, I never would have bought it. That they forge an alliance, Tyler and Bryce.
Right.
Right.
And I honestly think that is one of the more satisfying payoffs of I mentioned earlier of the whole redeeming the rapist and redeeming the potential school shooter. Yeah. But honestly, the way in which they help each other is one of the more redeemable things about that redemption arc.
And again, they're both bonded by that question: can they change?
Exactly.
Is it possible? Of course, for very different circumstances. And again, one is more of an uphill battle than the other. But again, can they change? All right. So let's get the 5. 5 is.
Episode 5 is Nobody's clean. Wow, that title is actually probably the simplest of the whole season.
This one, quite simply, is the Alex and Bryce flashback episode.
Yeah, Alex goes to see a hooker multiple times.
So first of all, that
The
hooker
world's
was,
most pleasant hooker ever.
I know, right?
Jesus Christ.
You beat me by a second. Yeah, she was so pleasant.
Dragon, it's like the thing is, it's like there's nothing like even I feel like all the appeal of this woman is in a purely platonic way to Alex, and I feel like there's something really heartwarming about that. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he does get to release his sexual frustration, but by the same token, it's all about just having some form of emotional support, no matter how shallow it is.
I loved it when he was crying on her shoulder and she comforted him. I thought that was so
Oh,
nice. But yeah, honestly, T, I really like this episode. I really do. I think this is really good for the Alex story of it all. I love the fact that he, very unlikely, again, knowing what happened, again, given he's friends with Jessica, knowing what Bryce did to her, he ended up befriending Bryce in such an unusual, way.
I wouldn't
And
even say it's befriending, though. That's the thing. I
yeah,
like
it's
the
like
ambiguity of this episode. It's more of a series of circumstances that kind of link them together.
yeah, but like to Bryce, you're right. But yet to Bryce, it's the closest thing semblance he has to a friendship in kind of the aftermath of all the bad stuff that he's done. So he's viewing him as a friend, and they're kind of like it's a friendship of necessity for Alex. But again, it's a friendship Bryce will take it any way he can.
Right.
It's very fascinating the way that goes down. Of course, the most oh god, those cringe. I don't mean cringing like not really like cringe inducing, but the most like kind of like oh god, it's so horrifying. They break into a house and they break into the wrong house and Bryce traumatizes this poor kid.
Yes. Yes.
And it's not just like by accident. I mean, he traumatized him by threatening like to kill the kill
That
the
was
kid.
super effective, man. That was a great scene.
And I love. So here's the thing. I would argue. So again, nobody's clean. Of course, the idea is that Alex is kind of course he doesn't become basically, he becomes addicted to steroids in no small part. Bryce didn't start him on that path, and Bryce didn't help him either. And Bryce, in a sense, he thought again he's trying to build a friendship. He thinks, and in doing so, he kind of basically kind of like ruins his life and kind of makes him culpable for other things. And the idea is like so again, nobody's clean the moral sense here, but again, nobody's clean the sense like now Alex, I would argue, sobers up a little bit in this moment. Maybe not again for his addiction. There's no way of fully telling that, but it's the fact that Alex I think he sobers up to. I'm not going to be your friend anymore. You're psychotic. You're
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
basically saying you're not going to change. And again, there's a valid argument for that when he's doing stuff like this. You're not going to change. And of course, Monty on the flip side, Monty he's very resentful. So this is where we stop at Monty. So Monty is
Okay.
Monty, of course, for me, like the most monstrous thing from season 2 is Monty.
Well, yeah, I think probably the most monstrous act of the whole series, arguably.
Yes, so we get basically the mantra I heard. I don't know if you did you watch the Beyond the 13 Reasons thing?
No, I did not.
I did. They brought up something very interesting, which I thought was really good. Is that what they were doing with Bryce, they also did with Monty here, where again you see because in real life, abusers there's something that caused that. It's like less, your monsters, more like what happened to you, what made you like this. Again, it's kind of a string of events. It's kind of a recessive gene in events. But not sorry, that's a terrible way of putting it. You know what I mean? It's passed down from your abuser to the other, to the victim to the abuser, et cetera, right?
Yeah.
And Monty here is very resentful of himself, basically of being closeted, it would seem. And this motivates these violent outbursts and just rejection of all things that would suggest that he's gay or suggest that he's some really horrible, some really bad F words, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that Monty's arc is definitely one of the more satisfying of the season because we humanize him, but we don't give him any sort of real sympathy either. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. That's the thing. Like Monty, he's striving for Bryce's approval, yet he'll never get it because again, Bryce is he's trying to change, but again, it's just this sad thing where Monty again, it's like I think deep down it's kind of like Monty really likes Bryce, perhaps maybe deep down.
That's kind of my headcanon with it. It's almost like, dare I say, a LeFou Gaston's dynamic.
I can't remember if you called that an earlier season or not. I remember you may have called that with Monty and having a thing for Bryce because it sounds familiar, but I don't know. Anywho, I'm going to argue this. on the whole with Bryce Walker, a big point during this season. I think Bryce, especially in this episode, I think it's best articulated in this episode. Bryce is a legit psychopath in that he doesn't get what he's doing is bad, but in doing so, he alienates the people around him. Therefore, he's not truly a bad person, but he's doing bad things because he just doesn't see any consequences to his actions, and he doesn't get it.
Sure.
All right. So yeah, I think that's in terms of plot here. We see. Let me bring up one more thing about Bryce, and we'll move on here. So Bryce.
Okay.
One could argue his hope is disappearing as Hannah Baker's did. So again, it's kind of like a perverse kind of justice that is hitting him. Where again, as Hannah kind of was losing kind of faith and hope as the season went on. Of course, Bryce being kind of the coup d'état and all there. Again, it's not the same thing that Bryce goes through, but again, in terms of like being alienated and just kind of losing hope as we progressively go through these episodes.
I mean, points to Justin Prentice, man, because we really do get a side of Bryce that we haven't seen before. You know, it's like I was kind of making things political earlier, but in all seriousness, though, we do get the genuine humanity of Bryce Walker way more in this season than we've gotten in the other two seasons.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. So let's see. Episode 6. You can tell the heart of a man by how he grieves.
This is the Bryce Walker funeral and the Tony story.
Once again, Dragon, I don't want to rally on the politics. I agree with the politics. I really do. But man, is it on the nose. Dragon, that mirror scene, it's well done. It's pretty artistic. It's pretty touching. But man, it almost feels like propaganda almost.
I absolutely agree with you 100%. Yeah, it's
okay.
I was thinking, man,
it felt out of left field, man. It really, like, I'm not saying I totally agree with the message. I really do. It's a heartwarming message. It hits home, you know. It's a good PSA. But that's the thing. It's a PSA. It really is just a blatant PSA in the middle of this episode.
It just feels like this whole season we're telling two systematic things, and again, this is where we're getting into too many messages. Where we have like the system of law, and then the system of the high school. Where the system of the high school is like the jock culture, which we're tackling, and that's more what we've been doing for a few seasons now. We're kind of reaching out of that, and it feels like I think we're going into uncharted. Well, I shouldn't say uncharted waters. I think we're going to waters that maybe aren't necessarily warrant exploring in this show. I don't know.
Because I feel like, well, I mean, I shouldn't say that deportation is something that teenagers don't deal with, because of course they do, but I don't know, Dragon, it is an issue of, like, I feel like the issues in this show should be more just general high school teen issues. So points for diversity, I guess. I mean, because don't get me wrong, I'm sure there are a lot of kids out there like Tony who have gone through similar situations to this, and it is a pretty heart-wrenching.
I mean, Tony's situation is really heartbreaking. It is. I mean, I'm totally behind what Tony's going through here, and I feel, it's absolutely horrible what's happening to him here. And of course, when we learn later the full reasons for what's happening to him, it's really tragic. But that's the thing. It just feels like basically in taking Tony out of the high school, it just feels like, we take him out of the school, he's running the place, and it just feels like the more we divorce Tony from the school, the more it's hard to kind of keep him in play in the story,
Yeah. He's a little off on his own this season. I feel like a lot of the time it's just him and Caleb, like, arguing back and forth of, like, how much Tony should be protecting Clay.
I gotta tell you, Caleb, and I feel bad for this, Caleb was so one note this season.
He really was, man. He really was. He
had a really great introduction, and he had a really solid story in season 2 from what I recall. It was like,
yeah.
It just feels like Caleb's
whole story this season is just like being the skeptic to Clay.
Yeah. Problem.
Oh man.
All right, let's see. So basically, this episode 6.
That being said, I do think that I really love how the Tony storyline wraps up with Thanksgiving and everything. That was really nicely done.
Sure. So family's an operative theme of this episode. So while we have
it's a family episode.
Yes. While we have we've kind of covered Tony's side of things here. We should talk about Bryce's side of things here. Importantly, we get a portrayal of Bryce's family and kind of especially the relationship he has with his father Ian, of course, what motivates his generosity towards Tony, and that the effect that his family has had on people, why he has no qualm in like stealing money from his family to help other people.
Uh-huh.
So of course, with Walker's, we have such a negative portrayal of them, where his father is such a scumbag to women. Like,
Oh my God, yeah, and just the fact that his father's like showing up for the funeral as if it's like a social event,
God,
just like rolling in and making casual jokes.
like he's freaking Norman Osborn during that funeral. It's like, yeah,
Right,
my friend
right.
Harry died. Who cares? Hey, don't fill up on the buffet. Don't fill up on the buffet. It's like, but yeah, that's the thing. So he's and also like he's assaulting protesters, like grabbing them and throwing them out physically. He's like, the guy's really.
Well, that's a little warranted, I think. I mean, in spite of how we feel about the man, I feel like, the disrupting the protest, disrupting the funeral is something that, I would maybe get a little aggressive with it as well if it was my son, hypothetically.
Look, he's not. You're right. He's not wrong. And again, I'm like, me. I veto the protest and the funeral myself as well. But it's the fact of like, he had cops taking care of it. He didn't need to get involved. There's the fact that he'd be so frothing at the mouth and yelling at people, throwing them like the teenage, high school girls, throwing them out of the place. I don't know.
Yeah.
It feels the point being he's doing stuff like that. Here's the thing that really creeped me out on the rewatch though. He grabs Ani's hand and like kind of saying hello to her, as in like I think he likes her. It's oh man, it's so creepy. So he's a real scumbag. On the flip side, though, I do love, racist as he is in this, I do love Raymond J. Barry, the grandfather of
oh my God,
who was in Gotham, by the way. He played the sensei, or the shaman, more accurately. He played the guy that taught Bruce Wayne.
Oh dear, that was another problematic character in an entirely different sense.
That wasn't his fault, though. They say this never introduced him properly.
Yeah, you're right. That was the main issue with him, is his lack of an introduction. Anyways.
Point being, Raymond J. Barry, good actor. Really solid voice, too, just want to get that in there. Anyway, so...
He does have a good voice, man. He does.
Yep, let's see. So, basically, we have a lot of...
he kind of has, like, a little bit of a Shakespearean gravitas with, like, the bloodlines of the Walker family and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So basically, we see with all of this, we see the origins of Bryce Walker's cruelty and the entitlement and the whole shebang. But again, importantly, and this is really great, we do see moments of civility with his mother. That he did genuinely, for the most part, he did like his mother. He did want to please his mother, even though he failed a lot of the time. He did, like, they had moments like when they're painting each other. I thought that was like so adorable. Like,
that was adorable. The yoga was adorable.
And he takes up for his mother with the whole Caitlyn gambit of it all there, where he stands up to his father to protect his mother.
Uh-huh.
So again, the point, we're showing that it's not like, as much as we were so one-sided against Bryce for 2 seasons now, basically we learned that he was... The biggest thing the season could have going against it, that I would argue it doesn't, is that episode 1, you could be in the mindset like, kill Bryce faster, kill him with fire even, kill him 8 days to Sunday. And again, I wouldn't blame you for feeling that way. However, again, we can't just be in that way, because otherwise we'd be rooting for whoever killed him.
I mean, I will say, Dragon, the season is effective, because by the time we get to his death, it's not like I'm feeling the same way I felt about Hannah, where I'm just like, oh God, Hannah, no, don't do it. But I will admit, I'm like, well, this does seem like a little bit of a waste of a life that could have potentially been redeemed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like, I'm not saying I feel bad for him, but I am saying that he was human. He didn't deserve to die.
Yeah, for sure.
He deserved worse, but he didn't deserve to die.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, so I think it kind of covers. Basically, it's about internalizing grief as well. So I guess it's the other theme of all. We have the security camera ending of this one. That's important. So the security camera footage takes us into the next episode, which is...
Okay, episode 7. There are a number of problems with Clay Jensen, a.k.a. the best episode of the season.
This is the big security tape. Basically, here's the thing that kind of bothered me. It's not this episode's fault. It's the whole season's fault here. So this is another example.
There are a number of problems with the whole season that kind of work its way through the episodes, Dragon.
All right, so this episode's about the security tape. Basically, there's a security tape of the big Clay going to Bryce's house and threatening with a gun, where he was either going to kill himself or kill Bryce, and Justin talked to him. It was a big moment from season 8. I don't think it was penultimate. It was either penultimate or the 11th episode. It was one of the 10, 11, or 12, one of those 3 episodes. Point being, big episode from last season, and it's also the big Bryce and Ani episode, the big one where they.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so here's the thing bothering me about the security tape. At the start of the season, they mentioned that Clay threatened Bryce in a public forum. Now, I would argue the big text thing, because the text is only at the end of the first episode, right? We showed Clay as a text, as I'm gonna effing kill you.
Yeah, I
And
wish that would have been more prominent throughout the season because when we do see it, I feel like it is very worrisome, but they don't really bring it up until the last few episodes.
this is my problem, Tiki. We had these moments, especially in episode 1, where again I'm operating on information from the second season, and I have no reason to assume, unless they explicitly say it, that this is a new event. That we only have to wait and wait and wait until we reveal what exactly happened. We're okay. When they say Clay threatened Bryce, I'm thinking of this security tape. So it's like they're now finding the security tape.
Yeah, I hear you.
That's what bothers me. All right.
All right. But what I love about this episode though is that it really showcases Dylan Minette's talent of just being kind of like this two different shades of him. You know what I mean? We get that the nice guy who will do anything for his friends, but we also get kind of like the kind of the more toxic version of the nice guy. You know what I mean? Kind of like the beta nice guy who obsesses over the fact that, like, well, just because I'm a nice guy means I deserve a relationship, and that kind of toxicity of, that sort of like toxic masculinity thinking that Clay does have. So I feel like this was a great exploration into Clay's character. I really dug this one.
This one explores kind of the there is an anger to Clay. There is it's less, it's not anger like he's an angry character. It's anger in that this is a guy who's seen the system really hurt people, especially people he cares about. So it's a warranted anger, but unfortunately now that basically he's gotten closure with Hannah.
I need to step out for like 2 minutes, Dragon. I'll be right back. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Sorry.
In essence, so Clay's a character, he has closure. He got closure last season, therefore the anger is kind of, he couldn't simmer down at that point. That's kind of a point many characters, even Bryce, has pointed out. Well, you got what you wanted, so there you go. And the fact is, Clay is just he's holding on to the grudge. I'm not saying he's not in the right for holding on to a grudge, but I am saying that Clay, this is manifesting itself in ways that are just not helping him, where he basically has a savior complex, and the event with Tyler last season is kind of bolstered that, where his head's on a swivel, he's looking out he wants to prevent that at any cost, and it's just kind of like bleeding over into other aspects of his life, like with Ani, for example. So the idea, and another thing this season really is bothersome to me is the fact that again, so we're never clear on how much Clay and Ani like each other. And I know they like each other. I know it's kind of like saying, okay, maybe they're going to form a relationship. But the problem for me is that Clay in interrogation, it's constantly the question of, do you know Ani? Like, did you have do you have any feelings towards her and all this sort of stuff? And I don't really know what to make of it. We're like, I'm operating like I don't know how much I'm supposed to know at this point or not, because again, we're dropping the ball in the earlier storytelling, so I don't know how much of this is supposed to be a reveal and how much of it is like, okay, so is he lying in the interrogation because it sounds like he's telling the truth? So things aren't matching up with this relationship thing for me. That's the biggest weakness I think Seven has going for it. Again, good stuff. Again, there's some really artful stuff done with Seven. It's more of an internalization. Not my favorite though, but it's all enough. I mean, I do love the idea of like Clay kind of having the evidence like dropped in his lap in the interrogation room. And she's been sleeping with Bryce, with the underwear and the whole shebang. And again, the way looking at it is like, oh God, Bryce has gotten to her. And that's the way he perceives it, because again, head on a swivel. But it's not. Again, there's some gray in there. But I think Clay has a point. And I think Ani, she's not wrong either. Clay is kind of dictating certain things to her where he shouldn't be, but he's not wrong. I don't think he's wrong. And again, if someone would warn you that this guy is bad news, again, she's forming her own opinion on Bryce, which is entirely warranted. But again, if everyone's warning you, like, hey, this guy, criminal record, that you very well know about, and the thing that really doesn't help is that throughout this whole season, Ani's one of her biggest problems, I don't know if you call it a character trait, I call it a character flaw, she lies to everyone. She constantly lies throughout this whole season. She's constantly lying. She's constantly, she's constantly she's trying to build trust and trying to have her actions be justified. But again, she keeps losing that trust and losing all that credibility when she lies constantly. Saying, "No, the underwear is not mine. It's not that. It's not this." She's she's trying. Basically, when it builds to that scene where she's kind of going up against Clay there and trying to say, it's not like that. I'm having a hard time seeing her point on that because she's just lost all that credibility. I don't know. Might just be me. Clay just getting back to Clay a little bit here. So Clay faces some accusations from his parents. Basically, his parents are kind of they're involved in the situation at this point. Again, Clay being brought down to the interrogation for the umpteenth time. His mother being a lawyer, it's kind of bound to happen. And they're going over legal options. And accusations really hurt coming from your parents, especially your mother, who again, after the events of the first two seasons, they can be a little shaky with. Where his father, not for a moment, thinks that he's done this crime. His mother doesn't just say like, "No, I know you didn't do it." She says, "It doesn't matter what I think." Again, that hurts a lot coming from a mother. And given how much the whole mother son dynamic is in this season, especially with Bryce, your mothers and sons, it's kind of a big operative theme for the season. So it must kind of nice and relative, I guess. Kind of seeing Clay's an inversion of Bryce to an extent.
All right, I'm back.
Yep.
Yeah, and just hopefully you didn't. Yeah, what I like about this episode is that it does kind of show the, kind of like the dangerous qualities of Clay and how Clay isn't just, a one note, just, white knight character. You know what I mean? And it almost kind of shows the dangers of what white knighting can do, and how sometimes you do have to just let people fight their own battles and figure themselves out, and you can't just be the hero of everyone's story. You know what I mean?
And that is Ani's big kind of character trait through the whole season, where she's just trying to, she's like the whole like the alien killer robots thing, or the killer whatever the thing, the alien robot thing. The whole like you're a person, you're the guy that saves everyone, and kind of identifying with that. So
once again, one of the many things in this season that was perhaps a little bit on the nose.
Yeah, I don't.
We need to have like a 13 reasons why on the nose bingo.
Yeah, we do. While you were gone, I just kind of brought this. I'm just going to keep it abbreviated here. A big problem is that Ani lies throughout this whole season. Does that bother you at all?
I think it's part of her character, and that's the explanation they give. But I don't necessarily think that makes it right.
I think like in the scene where
on the fence.
It's like when she has her conversation with Clay here. Again, I'm not seeing her point fully because she loses credibility with me a lot.
Yeah, no, she does. She does.
Let's see. Oh, big scene. Clay and the Clay Bryce hallucination. Like the only scene I shouldn't say.
I kind of wish that they would have done this a little bit more, Dragon.
Yeah,
honestly, I got to admit, I found this one scene more entertaining than all of the Ghost Hannah stuff in season 2. I really like this scene. I mean, I love how Justin Prentice just got to play up like all the negative qualities of Bryce. You know what I mean? Like this is like the Bryce Devil personified, and it's awesome.
Yep.
And it's one of the big reasons why this is my favorite episode of the season, I've got to admit.
Yeah, Justin Brent, that Bryce, he's been taking lessons from the Kingpin.
He has. Oh yeah.
So yeah, basically he's
please, Mr. Fix, teach me. I just loved it. Oh my god, the Kingpin would totally emphasize with Bryce Dragon because he'd be like another young man with a troubled past who'd be like on the right path to redemption, but the Kingpin can kind of twist that to his own means.
Could be his North Star and everything.
Oh my god, fucking Bryce Walker is just like the perfect Kingpin target, Dragon.
Absolutely. Anyway, so the conversations, and this is where you get to the great stuff. Where again, basically everything. I think Clay. One could argue maybe Clay, if going down, I guess Clay's worst nightmare, he'd be going down a path of becoming Bryce to an extent. Even though everything would actually literally become Bryce, like do the horrible things that Bryce has done. But again, one could say, becoming possessive of women could becoming like Bryce and vice versa,
I mean, the becoming possessive of women thing, Dragon, I mean, I struggle with that just in the sense of like, I do struggle with just dating in general. I am just not good at it. And so on the off chances that when I do get into relationships, I tend to take them more seriously than the other person does. I'm not saying that I'm possessive about them. I will certainly, like respect their wishes and everything like that. But I will say that I get too attached to girls too quickly. And I feel like that is a problem that me and Clay Jensen share. So in that respect, I felt a little bit called out in this episode, but in a good way. You know what I mean?
Sure. And again, I feel that's what they're going for. I don't think it hit the landing quite as well as it could have. Like, we keep another really bleak payoff here. The whole homecoming whereabouts of Clay Jensen, which that's a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah,
I thought that was going to be a
is.
huge deal because it's like how you shut down every conversation. Where were you?
Front of Bryce's house, but he didn't do anything. What a fucking twist!
That's what I'm saying. It's the dumb out of all the payoffs that go nowhere. That's the one that pissed me off most. I gotta be honest. It's like literally, it's like we have this big conversation between him, and like, where were you on like, homecoming? And just shuts her down, and that's what happened.
Right.
Okay, so the idea in that he can't escape Bryce, and I think one of the best lines in the entire season in this conversation is, "I'm going to be reborn in." Sorry, I'm trying to get the line right here.
I know what line you're talking about. Yeah.
I'm going to be reborn in the something of a million men, in the beliefs of a million.
I think in the bloodlines of a million men.
I think it's like belief. Darn, I feel. Oh, the blood. Maybe it's. I don't know. Maybe it's blood. The bodies.
The blood of in the bodies. Yeah, that's.
I'm going to be reborn in the bodies of a million men. That's what it is.
Dragon. That speaks to the Shakespearean quality of Bryce Walker as a villain.
I love the idea. Think about this: if Clay has a savior complex this whole season, which I brought up by the way, I brought up the whole he's stopping the bullies from the tour and the episode earlier, so that whole thing.
Uh-huh.
Point being, it's kind of like Bryce is now a force you can't stop in death, and that again is he's kind of like he has his actions have been kind of born like the jocks are they're still kind of an infamy there. Bryce is systematic of a bigger problem. He's one man. He can't save everyone. He can't stop this thing. It's like a savior versus like an unstoppable force. It's really interesting.
Right.
All right.
Okay, then. That brings us to episode 8. This is the most ridiculous title of the whole season. In high school, even on a good day, it's hard to tell who's on your side.
This is the big Porter interviews episode.
Dragon, I gotta say, this is another one where it's okay. There's a couple decent developments with Bryce. Overall, I don't necessarily think it was needed to bring Porter back into the story. It feels a little shoehorned in.
Porter has one awesome moment that has a really excellent payoff.
And I'm saying that I really liked Porter in season 2. I thought Porter kicked ass in season 2.
He did. Porter rocked in season 2, man.
But I feel like his storyline was pretty much done, though. And I feel like him coming back for this one episode is, I don't know, it almost just kind of feels like a little bit too much of a one-off. It didn't really have that big of an impact on the overall story. You know what I mean?
One exception, though.
Okay.
So, the most part, I agree with you. It's just, remember, so Porter comes back with Porter's coolest moment in his return is in a moment, because he's been around, because he's seen things, his eyes are open, man. He sees the look that Tyler gives Montgomery, and he knows something's off with that kid. And he tells this to Clay, and then we have the big Clay and Tyler scene. So that because we have that big scene, that's such a well acted scene when Tyler tells Clay what happened.
Yeah, Devin Druid, man, he is definitely the most improved actor of the season for sure.
Actually, I gave him more of his hair back, but it's only so many months. But yes, I mean undercut that. But yes, he's really great. Seriously,
yeah, he's the one of the most improved actors, but his hair's too short, so fuck him.
It's always bothered me ever since he came back from that retreat. They shaved the head.
Right.
Oh, but seriously though, that scene is just when he basically finally, again, this is a big lingering. There's another thing. It's like kind of a pet peeve. It's not an actual problem. It's a pet peeve. Like, why can't everyone just get on the same page earlier in the 13 episodes, man? Why can't just do Tyler's? I understand like it's a big traumatic thing. You have to have an occasion for him to tell him, but still, it's like 8 episodes in. It's. I wish we kind of get everybody on the same page a little earlier. But again, basically, this is going honestly 8 to the end is where things kind of pick up a little bit. So.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit
I
more
still
so.
don't think it's perfect by any means, but
Sure. Anyway, let's see. I'm trying to think if there's anything major. Basically, Porter again, he's interviewing people, and the idea, and this is kind of like, yeah, you thought it was blue, but it's actually red, kind of reveal.
I don't
It's
like how two-faced Porter is, where this is what you're talking about, right? Where you think Porter's doing one thing, but instead he's doing another thing.
it's kind of easy to figure out, and that kind of bothered me.
It did me too,
Or
yeah.
because I think it's going where it's going. Otherwise, it's like, I mean, I love it's either because I love Porter in season. It was like, oh no, don't bring Porter back just to make him like a two-faced guy.
And
Like,
that's
don't.
what I'm saying, Dragon. That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what bothered me about this episode.
It's either that or what you think it is, in which, oh, okay, so Porter's just trying to bolster Clay's character for the character reference on the
Uh-huh.
record, which is kind of nice, but again, still, it's like, okay, it's kind of spelled out, though. It's like, it's either terrible or it's like, yeah, it's kind of what I expected.
So in other words, no, sir, I didn't like it.
Oh, God. Sorry. It's funny. All right. Um, okay, so importantly, the other we do get one other big thing with Porter. Though. Porter we have the therapy sessions with Porter. Though. That's really good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, with Bryce. Sure.
Oh,
That is
honestly, I
good.
think we might have gotten more mileage if he came back in that capacity. Because again, they do have something over Porter in that he strangled, he basically choked out Bryce, and they kind of have
Uh-huh.
something over him before he'd be there for the therapy. So Bryce is actually getting help via Porter. We have the letter from his mother, which is quite heartbreaking too, by the way. Where
It
again, this is where
is. It is.
and this is like a moment where he gets that letter. It's like this is like the justice from Hannah Baker sort of thing here, where he's emotionally kind of getting where Hannah felt here, where it's like, yeah, it's like your mother never even loved, she never even wanted you.
Oh, God.
Yep. And again, what's so fascinating, so perverse, that he would have done the same thing to Chloe had Chloe had that baby. Basically, it would have been the similar circumstance that his mother was in, had it been Chloe, who didn't necessarily want the baby, but would have.
Right.
All right. All right. That's the one, the thing that leads us into the next episode, the shaving cream.
The Ryan shaving cream. I'm sorry, that was a cheap joke.
No, so of course, Justin, we learn from Monty again. So Clay, I love that Clay respects Tyler's truth here. Where Clay isn't just like, "Hey, you did something I didn't like." He doesn't make that call like he might have made in earlier seasons. Clay just goes up there
Oh,
and he talks about the other things, trying to get lead on him. He thinks he might have been the culprit because of this sort of thing. And he finds out that Justin may not. Again, this little like it's hard to tell who's on your side these days. We had that with Porter, and we have that with Justin. Oh my God, Justin might have been the guy the whole time under Clay's nose because he's back on his stuff. He's falling off the wagon.
right, and that leads us to episode 9, right?
Yeah,
So 9, always waiting for the next bad news. This is a Justin episode, and I gotta say, this is one of the more relatable to me, Dragon. I definitely, I will say Justin, to me, might be the best character besides Clay. And I even might say that he might be the best character on the show. I think Minetti is clearly the best actor, but Justin, I think, might be the most solidly developed character in the whole show. I really think Justin's come a long way since season 1. And I think I think I was probably more emotionally affected by his scenes in the season, especially all the stuff about him being so touched to have a family and him and Clay being brothers, and just the affirmation that they love each other, and Dragon, all that stuff is just super heartwarming, and I really, really thought it was well done.
let me say this. This you're not wrong. This was a solid Justin episode, but I gotta be honest. Now I'm thinking about it, looking back on. I don't think we need this episode at all.
The one thing that I really love about the episode is how we had the drug test scare that Zach redeems Justin on. And Dragon, we might not need it, but what it does I think the only reason why we need it, I will argue, is that we need this episode because we need Jessica to realize how much football means to Justin and how Justin would be pretty much fucked without football.
You're right. I didn't think about that. Yeah.
And that in this episode definitely illustrates that in a pretty poignant way. And Dragon, I mean, this is a very relatable episode to me because, folks, not to get into my own drug history here, it's like, by all means, I've never touched heroin or cocaine or any of the hard stuff, thank God. But I do dabble in marijuana a little bit too much. I will admit I do dabble in it a little bit too much. And so I can relate to Justin's struggles here a little bit. And and like I said, it's not like it's not like I'm doing hard drugs or anything, folks, so don't worry. But Dragon, I will say that if I didn't have these podcasts, one of the reasons why I do these podcasts so regularly with you and with other people is that, honestly, if I didn't have these podcasts, I'd probably just be getting high, because getting high is kind of a crutch for me. So yeah, I can relate to, like, if someone was to just take away these podcasts, I'd be in a similar, like, oh, I'm fucked because I don't want my life to just be that. I'm sorry if I'm getting too personal here, but this was one of the most personally heavy hitting episodes for me.
All right. Let's see. So Seth, we should talk about Seth.
Oh, Seth is a piece of work, and man, Dragon, as you know, I have, not going to get into details here, but I have my history with one of my mom's ex-boyfriends. Still, let's just say that's unresolved to this day. And Seth is just he is a living, breathing, like, don't get me wrong, Dragon, this guy's never, like, threatened to kill me or held a gun to me or anything like that, thank God. But Jesus, I mean, it's definitely like the way that Seth, like, intimidates and emotionally manipulates is very much in the same vein of stuff that I've experienced within my own family. So that is another thing that hits hard with the Justin storyline for me.
Yeah, and I guess with the title, it's like, we're just piling on the bad news with like with Justin's relapse and everything.
Uh-huh.
So I love the coach. The coach is really nice. The coach is like really giving the inspiring words to Justin about not giving up, and like the whole no sir of it all there. And like, what do you want me to say? Say I won't let it happen again. That sort of thing. Like good stuff.
Yeah, it is nice. Yeah.
With the Bryce of it all, I mean, this is the only other like thematic reason we might need things here. Again, Bryce bails Justin out. Again, like the other brother that he had. You gotta remember, Justin was really torn up earlier in the season about Bryce being dead, because the guy was his brother proverbially, the way Clay is kind of now. And yeah, I love this. Think about this. So Bryce, again, he bails Justin out, yet he feeds the habit by giving him the pills.
Right. It's such a three-dimensional problem, and honestly, I don't think that Bryce was giving Justin the pills in any sort of malicious way. As a matter of fact, this is up for debate, Dragon, but I personally think that Bryce gave Justin the oxys with the intention that Justin would detox off of them, because the oxys are definitely less powerful, less hard than something like heroin. Don't get me wrong, oxys are still not something that I dabble in, but but still, it's not nearly as dangerous as something like heroin. So I do think Bryce maybe had good intentions at first, at least.
I would argue this. That's a fair point. I would argue something a little different. I would argue that Bryce, again, I think before Bryce, here's the thing. When Bryce hears the tapes, which we'll get to, I believe, and I think the next one. Bryce hears next one or two. Bryce hears the tapes. I think that triggers a genuine change in him. But after the therapy, you might be right. I'm not sure if the therapy was enough to get him there. Or basically, Bryce ordinarily, I think would just give him that as as what he thinks to be a solution, but it's not really. Like he would just give him the pills because he thinks he's helping, but he's actually hindering again. Just him not picking up on like what actually helping is. That's the thing. It's a question of if that therapy that he's had with Porter really helped him at all, or if it's the tapes. Because I know the tapes truly help.
Kevin Porter, so in spite of Kevin Porter's best intentions, he's not the best therapist in the world.
That's the question. I think I'd probably be on the affirmative that no, he gave them to him as what he thought would be a fix, but it's just he's not just like after the tapes he would have properly detoxed him, but not before.
Okay.
All right. Okay, that brings us to episode 10.
Episode 10. Let's see. That is The World is Closing In.
The World Closing In.
And this is an Olivia-centric episode.
I love Olivia Baker. Yes, I do. Oh, she's so wonderful. It's the base. That's what the episode is. Too. Just the return of Olivia Baker, who rocks. This episode's kind of a story of mothers to an extent.
It is. It is.
Yeah. One of my favorite moments.
I feel like this is definitely. It's interesting that this directly it comes like just one or two episodes after the Porter episode, because I feel like it's a much more successful version of the Porter episode where you take a character who was pivotal in season 2, you have them return, you have them be involved in the main storyline, but this one just works so much more naturally than the Porter one does.
That it does.
Because not only are the interactions genuinely believable, unlike some of the stuff with Porter, but it also is way more plot relevant than a lot of the Porter stuff.
Oh yeah. One of my favorite moments in the whole season was Olivia chewing out Sheriff Daughtry. Basically, Sheriff Daughtry's the more stern one, like not Alex's dad, but the other guy.
Uh-huh.
Just love her chewing him out over the system and how it failed her daughter. Now it's like, you mean to tell me my daughter's rapist is getting quicker results than my daughter?
Yeah, that's definitely a heavy hitting line for sure, but in a good way.
Olivia rocks, man. I love her. She's great. Anyway, sorry I'm geeking out over her. Anyway, let's see. So I love that we continue one of my favorite elements from last season, but yeah, I guess from the series as a whole, if you want to kind of loop in Tony, the whole thing. I love to continue the bond that Olivia shares with Clay and Tony, especially with Clay. And of course, that was a really well earned one from season 2. It's like the fact it's so sad and beautiful to me that she's alone in Hannah's grave, calling Clay just to chat.
Yeah, and then just just the fact that we get that voicemail message of like Bryce has been welcomed back into Liberty High School and they're calling it a homecoming and I'm gonna fucking kill him. It's very much definitely adds to I will say, Dragon, we've complained a lot about the narrative structure of the season, but one of the things that the narrative structure does well is that it does genuinely make it believable that any one of these people could have done it. You know what I mean?
It does, yeah.
That is one of the things, as we got into the final stretch of episodes, I still had no idea who it was. So I give it that props.
I'm trying to think who I thought it was, because obviously it shifted a great number of times.
I got to admit, I thought my main suspect was Mrs. Walker, believe it or not.
For a while, I did feel, again, because it kept changing. I thought,
and then towards the end, I was pretty convinced that it was going to be Monty, and then I ended up just being completely wrong. And in fact, the person who it was probably not even on my radar at all.
Me neither.
So,
for a moment, I thought it was Tony.
I will say this. I never bought into the Clay red herring. I always knew it wasn't going to be Clay.
I knew that.
Because if it was Clay, then they just made it way too obvious if it was going to be Clay.
Yeah, of course you can't make Dylan Minnette the killer. I love the
He's
Minnette.
He's a good boy, Dragon.
Yes. Anyway, okay, getting back on point here. So we reveal via Olivia that Tony, that the Walker, we learn truly what happened to Tony's family. So we learn that the Walker family, just out of resentment, again, they had no reason to even legitimate. This is what makes it really screwed up. Tony essentially testified on their behalf, technically.
Right, yeah.
Because basically in service of their cause, whether he wanted to or not. And anyway, because of that, they went after his family because they were mad about the ruling. And again, remember what the ruling was, too, that he got off scot-free.
Yeah, exactly.
Just
the Walkers have their priorities just not right at all.
He got probation, as in, yes, he was found guilty, but he just walked out of there. And they deported his family. Oh, it's so horrible. And that's why Bryce is trying to help Tony, trying to kind of make up for his family's sins there. And it's really just trying to assuage guilt. It's not right. And Tony, in response to this, he played the tape for. And I love that he fulfilled the last.
This
And
is
again,
one of the best scenes of the season. Is Bryce listening to the tape?
oh
And I
yeah,
will say that this moment is one of the few moments in the season where I genuinely believe that Bryce could be a changed person.
these tapes are what. Again, these tapes let that idea be put into play legitimately, where everything else is a little up to scrutiny. Where it's like, okay, well, Bryce, at the very least he wanted to change. At the very least, he definitely wanted to change after
Uh-huh.
this. This was big for me. Never. I'm surprised he never listened to tapes of, like, when they're put online. That's the thing. I was with Tony there. Wait, you never listened to the tapes? No, that's the thing. And yeah, it's again. I love the thing that hits me most about it is that Tony's fulfilling the promise of Hannah Baker's. Like, oh yeah, he never did send the tapes in because he was the bad guy, and
Yeah,
that's why
yeah.
that's why he wanted Clay to listen to him because he was having a conflict of like, who the heck do I give these to next? Let's see. So my heart breaks for Olivia and her message to him. I love the Walker and Olivia's Baker versus Walker. Essentially, is having that little sit
Baker
down.
v. Walker.
Yes. Let's see. We see. I'm sorry. We see the threat to Bryce. So we see like Mrs. Walker seeing Bryce. You basically see the big threat to Bryce, where Clay's like yelling at Bryce after he brought flowers to Ani, and he basically says he learns that Ani was lying to him. He doesn't learn that they were intimate because he learns that in the present, because again, screwed up narrative, mind you, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's a problem for sure. You kind of forget what reveals are happening in the present and what reveals are happening in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes kind of a convoluted web.
Yep. I gotta tell you, I feel Clay really the way they shot it. Clay gets really rashly arrested at the end of this. Where again, they're searching for the phone. They don't even listen to the message first. They grab the phone. They instantly arrest him when they go there.
Mhm.
And it feels again for the umpteenth time he's been arrested. So it's
Yeah, that's another problem is that, like I said, I feel like they use that cliffhanger as a crutch. I feel like the cliffhangers in the past two seasons have been a lot more natural, whereas in this one, it's just kind of like it basically goes either one of two ways with each cliffhanger in this whole season, Dragon. Either, oh my god, there's a new piece of evidence, like Tony's car was found in Bryce's garage or whatever the fuck. Or, like you said, oh my god, Clay's being arrested for the umpteenth time. It's like
speaking
the
of.
cliffhanger always goes one of those two ways.
However, speaking of the evidence, I do love the little detail in the opening credits. They have like a little thematic piece of evidence being put into the bag when they figure what number you're on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a nice touch. I agree.
Speaking of which, let's move on to episode 11. 11!
11! Episode 11. There are a few things I haven't told you, aka the homecoming episode, aka the episode that I was just most let down by out of the whole season. Okay, Dragon, just this whole thing is just like they were building this shit up so much, man.
Yep.
And I was just like, oh my god, like, what are they gonna do? And yeah, it was nothing. It's like they run out, they strip down to their underwear, they splat some red paint on themselves, they yell a chant about rapist culture. And Dragon, I mean, that is just like that's it. Like that's the big thing that like brought Liberty High School to its knees. Dragon, frankly, I would like to think that Liberty High School has seen much worse than this.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's literally, I forget if it was the first or the second season. I think it was the second season. They had like a fight break out in the hallway, and okay,
It's
so
the second season. Yeah, the second season had a fight in the hallway, and this scene very much reminded me of that.
we did it again, but on a football field, and we just made like a big, kind of like protesty show, and then the fight broke out. That's about it.
That's literally all it is, Dragon. That's literally all it is. It's like instead of the hallway fight, it's a football field fight, and it's just done with this ridiculous protest. And yeah, I mean, it's just kind of weak sauce all around, Dragon. And like I said, I was really expecting whatever protest this was going to be fucked up because basically what I thought it was going to somehow be a step above protesting the funeral. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what exactly I thought. I thought maybe I had a crazy theory in my head that maybe they were going to have Bryce's body and do an exposition of Bryce's body or something. But I mean, just I certainly didn't expect it to be as weak as this. It's just like, oh no, some guy grabbed the girl's breast when the girl is clearly, I'm not saying she was asking for it by any means, don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying, these guys have a history and you're out there flaunting it, and it just doesn't seem like a good idea is all I'm saying. And oh God, it's an inciting incident, Dragon. It's very, very weak. And the fact that I feel like an idiot for defending it, Dragon. That's the problem. It's
they
they
mentioned that she kind of set off a riot, and I knew there's probably inferred that there was going to be a fight. You thought it was going to be a little more riotous than that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was weak. It was just weak, man. I mean, it was just like a few shots of them on the field, like brawling with each other. And like that's it. That's it. That's the whole big cataclysmic event that the season was building towards.
My mindset was, Dig, that again, like I was thinking it was like a homecoming dance. Remember the last time we did a dance on 13 Reasons Why, and it was like again like a near school shooting. That's what I was thinking of. Or, again, I know it didn't end up being a dance, and again, they could have specified that. And that's
I was thinking maybe they were going to do like a mock school shooting or something.
I don't know, like or something, or at the very
like
least,
maybe use paintball guns to simulate a school shooting, something like that. I don't know.
Again, I thought
all of these ideas I'm throwing out here, I feel like are more extreme than what they actually did.
No, I thought Clay was going to take more center stage, given the fact that everybody's asking what happened to Clay on Homecoming. Like, I thought he was going to do something really public to Bryce. At the very least, I thought there was going to be a fight, and Clay would do something very public to Bryce that many people saw. That's what I thought. But and they said, where do you go afterwards, implying that he did something really big during the Homecoming thing, and then where do you go after that? I don't know. Point being, Homecoming was just kind of disappointed in terms of what the payoff was. However, one bit I will give it credit for. I love the red paint moment with Tyler.
Yeah, that was nice, I guess.
I was saying, like, the way that was shot, like, oh god, it's so effective and it's so evocative, like that horrible thing that happened to him. It's like, yeah, it's
sure.
Well shot. Let's see. So basically, Clay's in it deep in terms of what's going on with the president. Clay's in it deep because the cell phone pinged near the murder site. The point is, Clay's up against the wall here. He's kind of a goner in terms of where his case is going right now. Basically, they're probably going to have to plead mental state, which no one wants to do, which is not right. Let's see. I'm trying to see if there's. Justin and Seth are about to cut a deal, which of course might help Clay out, and basically kind of a false witness sort of thing. And it's kind of where we. Big thing. Tyler tells Jessica what happened via the thumb drive, which the idea is if he had killed himself, after killing a whole bunch of other people, that would have been left there for someone to find. So he shows that to Jessica.
Yep.
I guess.
Effective moment.
I guess one last important thing is that Bryce. It's interesting that before we get to the next episode, seemingly Bryce's last actions initially were to protect Tyler and Ani. So again, he had noble actions before he did something really vindictive, and then, well, everything goes south for him, let's say.
So that's the thing, Dragon. That's the thing, is that the one thing that I'll defend the Homecoming situation with is that I do think that episode 12, we get more details that make it a little bit more of a juicy event.
Yeah.
It's just narratively, it's done in a really wonky way. But by the end of the 2 episodes that center around Homecoming, I feel satisfied enough with the build-up.
At the very least, I know it strengthens the other episode, but in part, like, it feels you might have gotten your money's worth if both Homecoming segments were in one episode. I don't know.
I honestly don't see why they couldn't have been either, because I don't necessarily think a ton of plot stuff happens in either of the episodes.
All right, speaking of which, let's get to episode 12, which is And Then the Hurricane Hit.
That's probably my favorite episode title of the season.
So this is the big Zach confession episode, and Clay trying to run away.
Hey, so I guess it's just going to be a pattern now that Zach is going to be like, like a big red herring mystery.
Yep.
Literally, Dragon, when I saw this going down, I was like, really? Really, Zach is the underwhelming answer to the mystery again.
We should have seen the deleted scene taken when he says Shazam, he turns into a hero that can shoot lightning from his
Oh
hands.
God.
Yes, folks, he was in that movie. Anyway.
He was in that movie. He's also in Riverdale.
Well, he used to be in Riverdale, then he went to do this, remember?
Oh, he's not in Riverdale anymore?
Yeah, they recast him with somebody, yeah.
Oh, that's a shame.
Because
Okay.
I believe because he was busy with this and Shazam, probably. Not some other stuff, I guess.
Huh.
Anywho. But
I gotta
he's in.
admit, that makes me less excited to watch Riverdale.
Oh, again, he's in the good seasons, man. Watch the good seasons. The
all right.
Anyway. All right, sorry. Getting back on point, you said Clay attempts to run away, but importantly, his care for he makes a choice to support Tyler, which again was a well made choice. There ends up motivating everybody and kind of ends up saving the day in terms of him showing up and basically it motivates Zach to kind of basically kind of help dig Clay out of the hole. It doesn't fully get him out of the hole, mind you, but it kind of helps a great deal.
What do you think of the whole the standing up and I'm a survivor moment? I thought honestly, out of all the somewhat political stuff in this season, I thought that was probably the most well played.
Me too. I thought that was great the way they handled that.
I did too. I thought that was like one of the few moments where they actually tackled a heavy hitting issue with some subtlety.
It spoke volumes, and the thing, of course, when Tyler stood up, it was a big moment. It was a warranted moment where he stood up, and again, it communicated volumes, and then of course inspired other males within the group to stand up. And then, okay, it was. See, I love this
including
thing.
A male that might be a big linchpin into the conflict of season 4, which we'll get into.
Okay, so here's a problem. There is one problem I have with it, not the moment, but in the aftermath of the moment.
Okay,
Justin. So we learned that
what do you mean?
Okay, here's the thing. So in terms of this, here's what's. If I'm reading it right, Justin was victimized as a child, and that he was kind of, for all we know, it might have been somewhat of a child prostitution thing. The point being, he was.
Well, yeah, I think they pretty much spelled that out.
So again, they have that habit. Here's the thing. Sometimes it bothers me when we have, and it's not a major thing. It's just something I don't know how I feel about it until we see more of it maybe in the next season. If we do anything with it, it's that it was compelling for sure, but I feel it was just added for effect. That Justin was added there for effect.
Yeah.
And it was like not intended from the start. And I like things like, for example, Renee Montoya in the comics. Renee Montoya, great character, and I like what we did with her. But again, it does feel like we made her something that she was never intended to be, and it kind of shows. But again, over time, we say they did stuff with that character. You like the character, so it's kind of a non-fact. So maybe Justin will grow over time like that. I don't know, but it's like it always kind of bothers me when we do things with characters as a gimmick almost. It's like we need to internally pair Justin and Jessica together. How are we going to do that? Well, they're both victims. Okay, problem solved.
I totally see where you're coming from. I think a better way to approach that would just be to have the idea that Justin is a victim of Bryce by way of Bryce's emotional manipulation.
Yeah, or again, the way I initially interpreted it before he kind of tells Jessica the whole sordid affair, I was thinking, okay, well, he's a survivor of a drug addiction, so it's kind of a survivor in a sense.
Or he's a survivor of an abusive household.
That too, yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
it's even better.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of where my head was at. But again, in the end of the day, here's the problem. The other legit problem with it.
Well, I mean, once again, Dragon, it kind of speaks to something that you and I have been talking about throughout the evening, which is that this show, when it wants to get into heavy-hitting issues, it does it with the subtlety of a fucking sledgehammer. And this is, like, really no exception.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that retroactively it makes things. Why wouldn't I know it's like obviously every survivor has their own story to tell, and there's a waiting period on that. But still, it's like Jessica's also a survivor, and you like her. Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't you have told her this?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's a sticky wicket. Anyway, so Zach. The point is, Zach. It's a great honorable. Zach Dempsey's. I think he's kind of a great honorable character in this, especially. I love him confessing for that near.
The honorable Zach Dempsey presiding.
Yes. So yes, he's confessing to the near fatal assault on Bryce Walker. Which I got to admit, I felt it very fulfilling the way he just crippled and beat the crap out of Bryce. That felt warm.
Dragon. This is almost kind of like the opposite of like the the cutting scene or the rape scene, where it's just like it is brutal, but it's very cathartic. You know what I mean?
Like this feels like like I can't say legitimately it's justice, but you know what? It feels just. If not justice, it feels a little just. He
Well, I
had
mean,
this
when you
coming.
think about it, like Zach, he had his legs broken for a very senseless thing. You know what I mean? The
Hmm.
whole like he wasn't even Chloe's boyfriend or anything. He was just helping Chloe through a hard time, and
That
Bryce
Bryce
just could not
caused.
let that go.
One could say, if you want to look at kind of the grand, kind of like the grand Shakespearean thing of it all, there, it's legacy for a legacy. He blames him for taking away because remember he was told that she was pregnant.
Mhm.
You took away my legacy by the fact that you were involved in that affair. I take away your legacy by taking out your knee and ruining your essentially your school legacy, your academia. Your
I mean, that's some messed up vindictive shit, man. It really
And
is.
again, he was, and like again, Bryce. I would argue again he was making a legitimate attempt to change, but that action proves that he's not going to change to me.
Exactly, exactly.
If he's going to be that vindictive
It's like
about
he
that,
might have a conscience, but just because he has a conscience doesn't mean he's a good person.
yep. And again, I love that he was left rendered helpless too, because again, he's left other people feeling helpless and done so many bad things to him.
Oh
Again,
yeah, yeah, yeah. That moment where he actually drowns, and is that what you're talking
well, I mean,
about?
like literally, he can't. Remember, he can't move because his legs and his arm, his leg and his arm is
Oh yeah,
broken.
right,
He's
right, right. Yeah. So even before the drowning, it's like
yeah.
throughout that whole affair, he's pretty helpless
I
for
mean, it fits
sure.
that. It fits the other thing too. I'm saying that moment too. Like he's just calling out. And he's just perfectly kind of helpless, and he's just still shouting, shouting his mouth off. And basically, again, that moment kind of especially it's a moment here and a moment, especially in episode 13, where again he will not change it. He's vocalizing that as he's just kind of on the ground in pain and alone. He will not. He won't change.
Mhm.
Anyway, so Monty, I guess the last bit of the episode after that would be importantly, he did not commit the death because he beat him near to death, but he drowned, as we learned again for the third time. Hey, he didn't die from beatings like we said earlier. He drowned.
Right,
Again, it is
right.
entirely possible that he just could have bled out and then someone knocked him over. I'm just saying in terms of like if you wanted to say like I'm not even going to try to justify it. I give up. All right, let's just, the point
Fair
being,
enough. Fair enough. I don't blame you for giving up at this point.
you know what? It's just I don't want to get into the whole semantics of like how this investigation was really poorly handled. But the point being,
It was.
Monty.
It was.
However, refreshingly though, Monty is arrested thanks to Tyler and his passion of photography. Where
Uh-huh.
again he took pictures and had that it's really well shot by the way. Have like that little kind of a flip book effect of
The time lapse.
time lapse. Yes, that's the better way of
Yeah,
putting
yeah,
it. The
yeah.
time lapse effect of like the bruising and everything, basically proof positive of the injuries that were caused by Monty, and
But
he is
also you
arrested.
get to see like a man healing in the process, which was pretty
Yes,
beautiful.
absolutely. And of course, Ani, she's figured out the mystery via Jessica. To what extent that involves Jessica, we'll find out because we're getting to episode 13 right now. Let the dead bury the dead.
Ooh.
So, kind of go full circle with Ani and things here. And it's basically kind of the big ending.
Mhm. Yeah, this is another. I would wager to say this is kind of another Ani centric episode. Like, dare I say, a bookend to the first episode.
I already went over the narrative structure, so I won't bore you with that again. But Monty in jail. Let's talk about that.
I think it was a smart choice for them to not show much of it.
Yeah, we only have one scene, which again, kind of it's a big scene though. It gives you a lingering effect. So you're in the back of your mind, you might be thinking about it, but again, even though we don't see him again, it's warranted that we have this lasting moment of sympathy for him.
Uh-huh.
Barely sympathy, but again, it's like he's excommunicated by his very hateful father. So you get a sense of where it all came from, where the self-loathing and the shame came from with his father. And he's asking, his only question is not the fact like, did you do this, or why did you do this? It's like the fact that it's more like what motivated this. Are you this? Are you gay? Essentially, the non-friendly version of are you gay?
To quote Shannon Elkins from Survivor Nicaragua, I'm going to get this out of the way right now. Are you gay? Oh, I've been wanting to use that for a while, Dragon.
Essentially, the phrase in the non-PC way of asking that question. And of course, he spits in his face and he leaves. And it's just,
That
oh man,
spit in the face is definitely the most sympathy you ever feel for Monty, I think.
closest thing, only moment of sympathy I've ever felt for that guy. All right, let's see. So So Anna, she lays out the full story to
What do
Deputy
you think
Stan.
of the reveal of laying out the full story and how we see it from the perspective of Standall finally, and we see like the whole story kind of like all at once? Because I thought that was, like I said, I think as far as a narrative structure goes, it took a while to really get into it. But by the time we really realized exactly the extent of it, I felt like it was well done.
Again, I think they did the best they could with it in that moment. I respect the attempt. It's just it comes off. It came off that I was fearing it was going to go a lot worse, and didn't go off as worse as I thought it would. It played out okay. It could have been better.
Okay.
I guess is the way I could put that. So again, I do respect. I like what they're going for. It just still it sounds too much like she's reading from a book.
Uh-huh.
All right. Anyway, so uh, but again, what's more interesting what she does though. Again, we have her lying yet again. But again, the lie is warranted this time. Where she's lying as kind of almost like a Dark Knight sort of lie here, where she's kind of crafting a
Oh, it's
lie.
totally a Dark Knight lie.
We're against a lie where they're both kind of in on the lie here. We're
And
against the
I
lie to
really
protect
love
the
how it cuts from the truth of the flashback to the lie of the present day story.
See,
That's a really cool
that's where I
editing
love what
trick.
they're doing. That's what I'm talking about. If they did a little bit more
Uh-huh.
like that, I don't know. I think that might jazz it up. I don't know. That was
I
great. So
mean,
again,
one thing you've got to give credit for with Ani is that she is a pretty consistent, unreliable narrator.
I'll give you that. Yeah, I mean, unreliable. Yes. Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
I mean, to what extent and if it makes it frustrating, that's kind of arguable. But I feel like just looking at the actual device of an unreliable narrator, I feel like she fits that criteria very well and is an effective one.
Sure. So we reveal what happened to Bryce. Diggy, what happened to Bryce?
Alex Standall accidentally killed him, kind of. Bet you didn't see that coming.
Okay, well, so it's very fascinating. So again, Bryce's last attempt to make amends is he made a tape. How apropos, he made a tape for Jessica to make amends to her. Gives that to her, and then basically he's helped up by Alex. And again, after he's kind of made an attempt to make amends here, and it's kind of like Alex, whether it be out of like some semblance of like loyalty of like he did help me when I was going to go down a path here, or it's the fact I can't let a man die here, or again he will be freezing to death in this weather and just kind of like sitting there, or one of the things. And basically he goes to help him for what reason? Again, you be the judge. He helps him up, again he's aided by a friend, what he views as a friend, but he refuses to change because he's swearing revenge on Zach, and then he accuses Jessica of like you set me up, didn't you? Again, he's frothing like a math
And
man.
these are two people that you really don't want to be threatening Alex in front of. Because Zach was thick and thin with Alex. One of the only people to stand by his side in season 2 after the gunshot.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, Jessica. That's a whole complicated story of like on again, off again. They've always been romantically linked, but very good friends at the same time. So yeah, you don't want to be threatening either one of those people,
So he tosses.
especially when Alex Standall happens to be roiding out.
That's the thing. So he tosses Bryce off the pier, and he drowns because he's helpless and he can't swim at
This is
all.
a glorious death, though. By the
It
way,
is.
just how helpless Bryce is. Like he can't. What I love is that he's so helpless that he can't even utter the phrase "I can't swim." You
You
know
know
what I
what's
mean? Like he's struggling to get out help. I can't swim, but he can't even get out that whole sentence. He's so powerless in this moment.
you know why it's a perfect demise? It's kind of a perfect demise because again, it's by someone who he gave power in the sense of again he gave him that
Uh,
power via the kind of a regular flow of the steroids, which kind of helped him do it without a cane, just kind of throw him off the thing in the first place. It was by someone who initially is weaker than him. So again, it's kind of it's a death by power that has been coming to Bryce for a long time.
sure.
And again, like at the end of the day, the question is like, did Bryce deserve to die, and vice versa? It's like, well, he may have repented, but again, he with those 2 episodes, with 12 and 13, I'm convinced he never would have changed. So
And of course, we get that dilemma because Deputy Standall is the person that this information is being relayed to. Except, of course, now what do you make of this, Dragon? Because I got the sense that Standall, it's left a little bit up in the air, but I get the sense that Standall knows she's talking about Alex, but lets it be with the dead bury the dead thing. You know what I mean? It's like, I very much think that Standall is kind of like letting this situation play out almost like in a James Gordon type way of like, like not, like innocent people have already been hurt. Let's not hurt more innocent people in this scenario.
Yeah, I think I think you're absolutely correct with that. Because remember, he would actually know, because again, he knows he found the steroid things and by the water.
Right,
They
right.
found the baggie of steroids, and importantly, he in the previous episode he learned that his son was on steroids, so he put two and two together. He absolutely has every reason to believe that Alex did it, but again, he doesn't want to pull that thread. And the other thing too is that, speaking of the dead and the dead of it all, so Monty died in prison. He was killed in prison, which of course for people who do the things that Monty did, it's entirely possible he would die in prison.
Now, it's interesting because I had a feeling that this was going to once again be the big show-stopping, like, oh my god, did I have to see that? You know what I mean? But no, I mean, what do you think? Do you think they just kind of restrain themselves from the brutality of like having a show-stopping act of violence in the last episode? Because this episode really doesn't get that.
Well, we have like the drowning of Bryce, I think, kind of balanced out there.
I mean, yeah, but it's not necessarily brutal. It's more just like thematically satisfying more than anything else.
Well, one could argue that we kind of had the brutal thing with Zach in the other episode, so I think we're covered.
I do think that is maybe the closest thing we get is Zach breaking Bryce's legs. Yeah. But I mean, even still, that doesn't even come close to the other two.
You're right about that. Look,
Dragon, I'm not. I just want to make it clear. I'm not saying like, like no. Let's make like let's put these poor kids through the ringer, man. Like I want to see him bleed. Like no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like it is part of the formula of this show to have like a shock and awe moment. And this season maybe doesn't deliver one in the same visceral way that the first two seasons did.
I'm going to argue this, Tiki. Again, while I can make the argument that, again, we kind of pieced it together between, like, both sides of Bryce's fate within 12 and 13. What I would also argue more fervently, though, is that I don't think it's as effective. It's definitely not as effective as the other two seasons in terms of, like, what you can do in a finale here. But we have more to, or it's an ethical thing. Or think about it. So we throw dead Monty under the bus, for letting the dead bury the dead here, in the sense of, we're basically ethically we're just going to throw this all on someone who's already dead, which is kind of like, there's a big ethical line there, and we learn via the tape that we listen to, and this is the visceral thing of it all, I guess, in kind of an emotionally visceral way versus like a physically and emotionally visceral way we've had the other two, that they hear that Bryce actually wanted to change, and they have to live with the decision that we put this on Monty, and again, Alex, we allowed Alex to get away with killing Bryce. So that's the bigger thing. I think that's the bigger visceral thing. All of our heroes, quote unquote, emphasis on the quote unquote, we allowed the killer of Bryce to get away with it because he was a bad guy. We allowed the other bad guy to take the fall, and they're both dead, so who cares? Let's move forward. But again, they've all made it's big. The bigger question is, did they do the right thing? That's for the audience to decide. It's like, right. What do you think they did the right thing?
I think they did the right thing. Yeah, personally, I do. I think they did pretty much the only thing that they could have done in this situation without any of them going to jail, which is probably the ideal goal they had in their heads. So, but I will say, of course, as we get into it, we've got some lingering plot threads, Winston probably being the biggest one, who I imagine is going to unravel everything. But we've also got the lingering thread of the guns being discovered by the fishermen. And, of course, the lingering thread of Deputy Standall knowing the full story. So I think there's definitely a lot of room to work with to make season 4 pretty satisfying, hopefully.
Yeah, Ani, I think...
Go ahead.
I think Ani had it right in that you were prepared to send away the wrong man and just right. Just kind of let it lie. Therefore, again, it's basically it's all put on Standall. Do you want to send your son to jail, or do you want to let a really bad person who's already dead? As in, there's kind of no one's really going to lose in this situation here. Just call it for someone everyone's kind of happy died anyway. So again, it's kind of it's basically us, the audience, knowing everything we've learned about Bryce and learning that he had the potential for change. But again, it's like it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, though. So it's a gutsy. I do admire the question that we're posing there, and with that ending that we did go with, I do like that idea. I like the ethical dilemma we kind of ended on.
I do too.
So also we end on a with Tyler. So again, while Bryce's change, of course, was kind of like it wasn't going to work out for him. Tyler's change, on the other hand, was positive, and that Monet is adorned with his photos, and he's being applauded by his friends for taking all those photos. But again, and feeding into speculation.
Yeah, and I mean that is a nice moment for sure. Don't get me wrong, but I think once again a problem with that moment is just realistically. Dragon, I'm not saying that all potential school shooters are bad, but I'm saying like once you hit a line where you're like traveling to the school with guns and the intent to kill, I don't know. I like again, the only reason I hesitate with it is because it is such a real world issue right now.
If
And
only
I very much fear that this could cause like, potential shooters out there to be like, "Oh, if, it's okay. I can do something like this and still bounce back."
If only they could have done. Remember the ending of the first season with Sky? If only they could have like taken that, like a more subtle version of like someone who's going to have troubles, and with the school shooter,
Right. Yeah. By
you
the
could
way,
have.
Sky is another one who completely just dropped off the face of the earth.
Well, her story was kind of done. She's not.
I know, and I'm just saying.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, though. But
Just in terms of tracking the people that aren't there anymore.
yep, no one's ever really gone, so it's fine.
No one's ever really gone.
But
Don't worry, Marcus, you're coming back in season 4.
But yeah, that's I agree. I think they went a little cinematic with them, literally like that last minute to the moment. But again, the optimistic idea being like, if you could like stop a school shooter and just kind of like kind of redeem him, at the end, kind of a positive show of things. Again, a little cinematic in how we communicate that, but it's a thought that counts.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, last season, I think there's a risk. Because I got to be honest, a part of me feels if they didn't have those cliffhangers, they could have ended it here. What do you think?
I
You think we need a season 4?
I'm glad they didn't end it here just because the season is so messy, and I do have faith that season 4 will at least be less messy than this. So, I mean, you're not wrong about the fact that they could have ended it here. I mean, having said that, there are a lot of loose ends with these characters. I mean, one of the appealing things about this show is the fact that the characters all harbor secrets, not just a couple characters harboring secrets. Literally every single character in this cast harbors one secret or another. And so I feel like that dynamic is kind of rife for a powder keg style fourth and final season to really kick things into high gear. And, poor Clay Jensen, I don't think he's going to get a break once season 4 rolls around. I think he's going to be in more hot water than ever with everything going on. And I'm excited to see it, Dragon, and that's the thing is that even if season 3 was the weakest season for me so far, I still enjoyed it. I still had fun with the binge. I was still genuinely intrigued by the mystery. I thought that, the soundtrack to the show is always good, and season 3 was no exception. Most of the performances in this show were great, especially Minette. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm coming down on it. Season 3 is definitely imperfect. It's definitely got its problematic qualities, both on a moral implication and on a storytelling level. But, regardless of that, it still does tell a pretty captivating murder mystery with a lot of misdirections, a lot of guesswork, and a lot of red herrings that ultimately lead to what I consider to be a pretty satisfying resolution. So yeah, overall, in spite of a lot of the things that are wrong with 13 Reasons Why season 3, and I definitely think it is the most uneven of the 3 seasons of the show so far, I can safely say I'm excited for season 4 and that I did enjoy my time watching season 3. So yeah, I don't think this show is a lost cause by any means. I just think we need to kind of maybe iron out some of the issues if we want season 4 to really stick to landing and bring the show out with on a high note.
That's a nice way of looking at it. It's just like I wonder, like, how many more secrets can they have? But bear in mind, we know at least one big secret that they're going to have. So at least we have some fodder there. I think season 4, as far as I can figure, is what the reasons in question are going to be, because we've had at least 3 justified reasons in the 3 seasons we've gotten so far. I think it's just going to be like, I guess it's going to be about accepting the choices that they made, again, with the whole Winston kind of hanging shad of it all. And I think accountability is in like taking accountability for your actions and then what you've done. I think it's going to probably go public, as well as the whole like Tyler of it all. And like, we did something good though, but do you realize how reckless that was?
Yeah. Sure.
I wonder if the whole adoption thread is going to come into play, because we kind of dropped off of that completely in the season. With Justin being officially adopted, and I guess his drug addiction, perhaps. I don't know. We'll see where that goes. I guess his final thoughts.
I would like to think that Justin will at least try to go to rehab.
Sure. Oh, that's a good point. We should just put him in there, because they keep saying they want to do something to help him. And of course, we mentioned Thanksgiving, so yeah, we should put him in rehab. Yeah. Yes, I know, kind of an oxymoron. Let's put the addict in rehab, but yeah, we should put him in rehab.
No, honestly, it really is, like, especially because Justin is at a point in his life where he wants to change and he wants to take the steps to get better.
Yeah. All right. Final thoughts from me, quite simply, just that compelling story, rocky start, and how we tell it, which makes it complicated as a whole. I love what we're raising for the most part, again, in terms of our main thematic, sympathy for the devil, and like, can we redeem somebody? I can't shake that we were overstaying our welcome in places, and that, again, I think we made a lot of lateral moves that probably were overstretched. Ani makes me think a lot of that, I got to be honest. But on the whole, three's messy as all get out. Definitely not better than the other 2 seasons, but I like what it's going for with the core story. So I think it could have been done better, maybe a little bit more simply, but it had solid moments.
All right, guys, thank you for joining us for this Spoi13rCast. We wanted to get this out as soon as possible so that the folks who binge this can have a place to listen to. This is definitely, I can promise you, Dragon, this is the most long-form spoiler discussion of 13 Reasons Why Season 3 that exists on the internet so far. We've really broken it down in a good way, so pretty happy with how this one turned out. Now, folks, for those of you subscribed to the channel, I definitely think the thing that you really want us to talk about is D23. Make no mistake, guys, that's all happening tomorrow. We're going to have an on-field report from Monkey, who was there all 3 days. He's going to report on the craziness of getting in, some of the panels he got into, some of the fun stuff he saw on the floor, and then we're going to break down all the crazy news. You excited about that, Dragon?
News! Yes.
All right, so thank you guys so much for sticking through this, and rest assured, tomorrow we will get to the stuff that I assume most of the fan base actually wants us to hear us talk about, so yeah. All right, see you guys later.
You bet.
Yes, man!